How did that one person from your circle get super rich? A guy I knew in college got obsessed with domain names back in the early 2000s and started buying weirdly specific ones for a few dollars each. For years, everyone joked about his collection of useless internet real estate, and then companies started paying ridiculous amounts for these exact names once their niches blew up. He sold a handful of them and suddenly bought a house in cash. Turns out his strange hobby aged like fine wine, while the rest of us were busy making normal decisions. I met a guy who did this with 800 numbers in the 90s. The light bulb went off when he was trying to buy an 800 number for a bartending school that he wanted to start, and the operator asked him for which locality he wanted to buy. So he started buying commonly desirable 800 numbers like 1-800-LAWYERS, 1-800-FLOWERS, in every community that he could across the country, and then calling the florists, for example, to offer them 1-800-FLOWERS in their locality for a monthly fee. Ended up with thousands of numbers across thousands of local communities. The internet has blown him up recently, but an awesome run or story for a bartender who was just thinking about making a little extra money teaching bartending skills. He was among the first 10 employees of Spotify. I'm the first employee of my company. Paycheck to paycheck, baby. And that's if the client pays on time. He got $10K from his grandparents as a gift for turning 18 back in 2013. He put it all into Bitcoin when it was around $150 a piece. Everyone thought he was crazy. There was a big scandal in the family. I don't know how he managed his Bitcoin and how much he still has, but after graduating from university, he's been living a millionaire lifestyle despite never having worked a day in his life. That's what a classmate did around the same time. He was making decent money already as a hazmat driver, but the hours sucked. His grandparents had given him a few $1,000s and he put it into Bitcoin. Years later, it started to blow up and he sold some of it so he could invest in a small company that made some sort of new camera lens or sensor. That company then got a huge contract with a cell phone giant and then was acquired by them years later. He quit his job, married his college sweetheart, and had a couple of kids and seems pretty happy and still down to earth, all by age 30. And I'm thrilled for him and his family. They do a lot of nice things for their community, and I don't think they even take credit for it. For example, they insisted the new playground be named after a long-serving teacher who just retired, instead of having it named after them, which was the norm for donations that size. He stopped eating avocado toast. He now owns companies in 44 countries. The fact that this is still a pop culture reference in 2026 is honestly mind-blowing to me. Really, that we're still all rolling our eyes about the one inheriting millionaire who claimed that millennials could get on the housing market if they stopped spending all their money on flat whites and avocado toast is a nice line of continuity in my life. His grandpa worked on a boat, and when they were in Germany, he saw a guy with a suitcase that folded down wheels. Then he got back to the US, got a patent for it, and now he gets like $2 for every one of those baby carriages that folds up. Ah, good old patent fraud. Yar, it be more patent piracy. Patent fraud is lying about it to the patent office. He invented e-tithing for megachurches, but ironically takes a massive cut. Literally the dumbest dude, like what a stupid idiot, addicted to white snow and painkillers. He just bought a few bitcoins in college. He now has 2 houses and a Lamborghini. Seriously, this is the stupidest guy you'll ever meet. He's been through 3 marriages, just bought a new house, hasn't worked a day in his life. He lent one of our friends 30 grand to pay off loans and then forgot about it. Nobody said crap about that. He just has a broker that uses his money and gives him a healthy budget. Vacationing at the Olympics last week. The guy would be hard-pressed to make microwave popcorn. God love that silly idiot. I mean, he doesn't sound so dumb. Gives away money to his friends, doesn't spend everything, and has someone who budgets his money. He's a genius. He was a complete moron working for a tech company in the dot-com era. He and the other managers didn't understand the technology and were hyping their plan to enter a business that required an advanced technology that everyone thought was at least 2 years away. As they were doing the roadshow before their IPO, 3 of the big players got into a bidding war to get control of the advanced technology. This guy's company got acquired, and the big player who won realized that not only did they not have the advanced technology, the managers didn't understand what it did, so they laid the guy off. His golden parachute gave him tens of thousands of stock options in the big company, and because he was laid off, he was forced to exercise them at the peak of the dot-com bubble. He scored over 30 million. The big company considered fraud charges, but they'd waived due diligence to get the acquisition ahead of their competition, and they would have had to prove the moron knew he didn't have what he claimed, and all of the people he worked with would have testified in his defense that he really was that dumb. I should disclose he was also likable and charismatic, which turned out to be more profitable than intelligence. Meanwhile, the programmers who did understand the technology and had been ignored by management when they tried to explain why they weren't ready to go public were kept on by the big companies because they were sharp. That meant their options didn't vest until after the dot-com crash had put their options underwater. He opened some stores with a crowbar. They married well, divorced even better. Oh, to be blessed by looks. It was the 80s, he learned to code. He said he wanted to be a millionaire by the time he was 30. The only time I saw him since school, he was 28 or 29 in the late 90s. I asked if he was a millionaire yet, and he said, nearly. After graduating, he had written software for the stock exchange. Last I heard, he was living in a mansion in Australia. Reading through these stories as a dev, building my own thing on the side, and honestly, the Bitcoin stories hurt the most. I remember my friend showing me how to buy some in 2015, and I said, nah, that's a scam, dude. This guy has a house now. I've got a side project and student debt. The startup equity ones are interesting though. People forget, for every Spotify employee number 10, there's thousands of employee number 10s at companies that nobody's ever heard of. Working for a startup is basically gambling. Only the currency is years of your life, and for every Bitcoin millionaire, there's tons of people who lost money betting on the next big thing. Almost all of the stories here can be boiled down to either gambled and got lucky, or had some cash to start with and worked really hard. His dad passed his business on to him. This wasn't a silver spoon job though. His dad made him work for it and made him prove he was capable. The company now turns over 10 times what it did under his dad. He got an amazing opportunity, which he doesn't deny, but he then took it on to the next level. They won $25 million in the lottery. My childhood nanny won $10 million. I'm delighted that she turned out richer than the family that hired her to nanny. She was very sweet to me, while my parents were emotionally absent. She deserved the best things in life to happen to her. They started an illegal massage shop, like a place where you got more than just massages. I mean, that's great for them. A true happy ending. That's disgusting. Where exactly is this massage shop so I can avoid it? Investing his inheritance in Bitcoin. Turned about 100 grand into millions in just a few short years. I don't know what defines super rich, but I've got a couple of buddies that make more than $1 million per year. Neither of them have degrees. One of them has insane people skills. Every single person from every walk of life enjoys being in the presence of this guy. He's parlayed that skill into moving up to VP of a major steel company by the time he was like 35. The other was in the car business. Moved around enough and met enough contracts that he created his own wholesale business. He has exclusive contracts with a multitude of major dealerships that sell him the cars they don't want to put on the lot, and he wholesales them to smaller used car lots. He essentially does nothing now except set the price. He has drivers and trucks that take cars from this place to that place. He's essentially drop-shipping cars all over the country. Plays golf 6 days a week. He kept buying cheap houses when everyone said the market was dead. 10 years later, those bad investments made him a millionaire. So he already had money. That's what you're saying. Started a band and became a huge international rock star. He bought derelict rent-controlled social housing in West Berlin just before the wall came down and renovated them like domino pieces. With the rents from the first house, he paid the mortgage of the second, third, fourth, and so on. From the outside, it looked like a big Ponzi scheme, and it worked, only because he also founded a building company and had his own workers. After 10 years, the house's rent control was abolished and the value of the houses skyrocketed. He owns €50 million in real estate now, and he started with nothing but a physics diploma. He drives a 30-year-old Mercedes and works every day, now in his 70s. When this guy barbecues, he buys a whole filet. But other than being a wonderful host, using great ingredients when cooking, and having a well-insulated home, he doesn't really indulge in luxuries. This guy had an idea when he was young, and he followed through with it. It helps that he's a nice fella. Now, is 50 times 10 to the power of €6 super rich? I went to math grad school at UCLA. There was this guy Vlad in our friend group that dropped out after about a year, started Robinhood, and is now a billionaire. Oh, so he was one of those absolute jerks who cut off regular people's ability to buy and sell as an option as soon as it started to look bad for some hedge fund managers during the GameStop shenanigans. Cool. Thanks, I hate him. He started a company that turns algae into plastic to make sustainable stuff. China pays him a ton of money to remove algae from their lakes and ponds. He then takes the algae, makes stuff like shoes with it, and sells those shoes at a premium. Pretty big company now. Nepo baby. Works for family business. Probably works 25 hours a week. Lovely bloke, but totally clueless to the real world due to having such a sheltered upbringing. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to Am I the Genius? Like 20 years ago, she and her husband started a little local food pickup and delivery business. They did okay with it, but they scrimped and saved. One year, they decided to take out a loan and buy a local Super Bowl commercial for their business. The next day, Quaker called them for a meeting and offered them $35 million for their little food delivery business. Well, once I get someone super rich in my circle, I'll let you know. He got himself a PhD and joined a cool startup. All hard work. Slumlord. She was already from a rich family, and then one night she went to watch a sports game, and the grandstand she was sitting on collapsed underneath her. She had 2 kids with her at the time and received a massive compensation payout that made her even richer. She escaped with minor injuries. He was already rich when I met him. He has very little formal education, but he's super smart, especially in understanding what people need from him. He liked drawing, found a niche doing lettering for menus and signboards in a city that didn't have anyone else doing it, kept his head down and made some friends with some rich business owners who referred him to their friends. It turned into a design company. I think he sold it. He's been involved in other companies too as a founder, investor, and advisor. Most of them seemed relatively successful. He retired before he was 30, I think, long before I met him. You would hardly know he was rich, but he'd always pay for our lunches when we met. As a grand Seiko he wears with his sweatpants, and the extras and mods on his car cost more than my house. If I'd met him in the UK, I would have 100% believed he was a substance dealer and record producer combo, but he 100% did it through drawing things people need drawn. I didn't know him well, but he was always really shy and nervous in high school. Tall, lanky, pale, spent most of the time on his computer. He kind of hovered around our group of friends. He got a computer science degree, worked his way up through a few big tech companies, and eventually started his own AI company. I saw him a few weeks ago after 8 years, and he's gotten super muscular and is engaged to a gorgeous dermatologist who owns her own practice. I'm more happy for him than jealous because he was treated like crap in high school. People always thought he was a sociopath or loser or creep, but he was just cripplingly shy and couldn't express himself. In the dinosaur age, many decades ago, my junior high school friend owned payphones, soda machines, and several other kinds of vending machines. It was a cash business, you see, and for about 10 years, a certain 3-letter government agency knew nothing about it. After a few years, he bought a non-automated car wash in a good location near his grandmother's nursing home. Again, cash business. He was a millionaire by the time he was 30, which decades ago was quite impressive. On a side note, he had a habit of buying fixer-up homes and always living in a construction site until the homes were ready to flip. That's probably why he was divorced twice. However, both of his ex-wives quickly remarried and didn't take him to the cleaners, some pun intended there, because evidently they were happy to get rid of him. This could just be me, but the biggest pattern I see among my friends who are financially well off is their lack of a personal social media presence. They might have accounts, but they never really post. I don't know if the data backs up my claim, I've just always seen it as an extension of their self-discipline. By starting an agency business and then productivizing their services as a B2B SaaS, which really took off, whatever that means. He and the couple of other co-founders sold their mobile game company for about $1.5 billion. He was working as a construction worker, and one day he had a rock climbing accident. He shared a room with the founder of a startup company for delivery. The guy liked his positivity and offered him a job. After only 2 years, he now owns half of the company, and they're expanding at the speed of light. Their grandparent inheritance. My brother died a few years after he got a $6 million compensation payout, and then I invested. I'm definitely not super rich, but I'm comfortable. None of my friends' circle are super rich. The richest got lucky and married a rich girl. She's super hot, smart, and retired at around 26 because her business, which she built up from nothing, did so well. He randomly met her on an evening out and somehow managed to impress her enough to get her to date and then marry him. That lucky jerk. By the way, that guy is me. Heh. Oh, well, she used to love to draw. She was really, really good in elementary school. Then Snapchat came out and she had used the feature that you could draw with and make silly pictures of her and her sister in Disney princess outfits and settings. Disney saw her work and invited her to a Disney tour. Snapchat saw what she did and hired her to create what we'd call filters today. Companies saw what she did for Disney and hired her to do advertising. And she ended up in a Forbes magazine. This little girl that grew up in a ghetto down the street from me ended up in a Forbes magazine before 30. My great-uncle was on the team that invented the Tylenol rapid-release gels. Was given a small percent of IBM stock in 1979. Handed it to a fiduciary. Lives a normal life. Didn't think much about his shares until he checked one day, and it was a few $100 million. Wielded soft power like a benevolent gangster. Funded colleges. Destroyed one when they held a prayer sermon to drive out a homosexual in the 90s. Good guy. Her mother died and left her over $700 million. She wasn't exactly poverty-stricken before. I visited her New York apartment and was greeted by 2 floors in the Upper East 70s overlooking the park. The elevator opened into a mirrored foyer with dozens of huge flower arrangements around a marble fountain. It had 5 bedrooms, not including rooms for staff, and 2 kitchens, a music room with a white concert grand Bosendorfer, and a live-in uniformed help, a cook and cleaner, and 1 man who dealt with schedules and reservations. Well, closer to the start of the video, we were getting a mix of gambling or hard work and gambling, but the frequency of inherited wealth is starting to increase. Hopefully, a few more interesting ones to come. I was told the story of a former client. He was a young entrepreneur with ties to the construction sector. He wasn't wealthy, but he was doing well. Prior to a crash in the early 1990s, he and his spouse purchased a condo in Florida. He became friends with the other owners, and only a small portion of the condos were sold. He was elected president of the association. The condo tower, as a whole, entered foreclosure. The current owners were concerned that their investment would be ignored for many years. Over the 4th of July, all of the owners got together to talk about the situation and enjoy their vacation. 3 men in suits stood out as they crossed the deck while people were gathered around the pool. He was asked to address them in his capacity as president of the association. They were on a tour to determine the next course of action for finding a buyer, and they were from the bank that held the mortgage note. When he asked what would happen, they replied that finding a buyer with the required net worth might take a while. They discussed the price they were hoping for. He let his wife drive while he spent 5 or 6 hours doing math on the way home. He saw that someone could purchase the entire complex, sell half of the available condos, and keep the remaining ones free and clear at the amount the bank desired. He proposed to the bank that he'd purchase it by selling half of the condos to friends and family in their hometown at a fair price. The bank would receive the desired price as a result, and he'd keep the remaining condos. The bank was open, but skeptical. They had a tight deadline for closing and demanded a sizable, non-refundable earnest money deposit. He'd lose everything and face financial ruin for life if he missed the deadline. Ultimately, he brought together numerous families from their community, and he and a nearby bank managed numerous closings in a single day. Every buyer received a Florida condo at a discount, and he received more than 8 figures in equity in a single day. I've never heard a better local entrepreneur story than this one. Was a government whistleblower about the private company they worked for overcharging the government. As it turns out, government whistleblowers get to keep 10% of what the government recovers back. So they ended up with tens of millions. And honestly, they've been so respectable and awesome with it, I'm happy for them. Dropped out of school at 17 to go work for a small local IT company doing industrial and corporate network infrastructure. Then invented something that's used to stitch the inside of the internet together. Patented it. Did the same 10 years later. As far as I know, there isn't an internet or infrastructure provider anywhere not paying him licensing in some form or other, either directly or when paying for the hardware using his invention. Now splits his time between an apartment in Manhattan, a villa complex boat in the Caribbean, and the house he bought for his mum, dad, and youngest sister in Yorkshire. He's one step off the board for one of the biggest digital infrastructure companies in the world. Works about 40 hours a month. Spent most of last summer touring Europe with his teenage son. The 3 other rich people I know got rich by being born to the right parents.
Who's that guy or that girl from your office, and what did they do to earn that title? I'll start. I used to work inside sales at an HVAC company just outside of Toronto. There was a guy there named Stan. Stan was money. Stan tried so hard to be social, but didn't quite know what he was doing, which often led to hilarity. Here are a few examples of Stan being Stan. Upon learning a coworker was Polish, he said, "You're a Polak?" Then told her every anti-Polish joke he knew. He genuinely thought she would find it funny, and he was laughing the whole time. After not getting a promotion after his review, since there were no positions for him to move into, nor was he anywhere near qualified, he created a petition to have our sales manager fired, and went around to everyone in each department and asked them to sign it. Nobody signed it except for him. My personal favorite was at a company barbecue. Stan and one of the guys from shipping decided to do mushrooms. The barbecue was at the president of the company's house, so this was wildly inappropriate. After about 45 minutes, he was going around from person to person shouting, "Go G-Men!" to the guys. He was a New York Giants fan and the season had just started, and asked the girls to dance with him. He then told a racist joke to the 65-year-old VP and laughed so hard at his own joke that he started drooling. I miss that guy sometimes. He made work a lot more interesting. A guy at my work, let's call him Roger, claimed that you can get high-octane racing fuel by mixing 89 octane and 93 octane in your gas tank. Roger told me on my first day here 7 years ago that if I wanted to know any good Asian massage parlors nearby, he'd recommend the good ones with the happy endings. First day at work. He used to watch webcam girls from the Philippines on his desktop at work, stripping, doing other unsavory things, etc. Then he went over and married one, and now she lives here. She's half his age and probably less than half his size. He took a Filipino coworker to see his buddy's band at a local bar. Turns out it was a biker bar, frequented by a lot of some kind of Aryan nation-style bikers. The coworker told me that there were signs up extolling the virtues of white supremacy, and that everyone was glaring at him the entire time he was in the bar. When he went to point it out, Roger just laughed and said, "I come here all the time, it's no big deal." Roger snores through meetings. Roger at one time had some kind of narcolepsy or something, and would fall asleep in his cube. Coworkers frequently threw things at him to wake him up. The weird thing is, he's actually a pretty nice guy. If you got arrested or something and called him at 3 a.m. to come bail you out, he'd do it, even if he'd only met you once for like 10 minutes. He's very friendly and sociable. He's just really strange. I used to work with Brian, about 230 pounds of pure software geek. He had a full beard like Grizzly Adams. Baths and showers were not on his list of important things to do. Once, we flew him to the client site to help solve a pesky problem. I reminded him to dress for the occasion. I greeted him at the front lobby and was shocked to see him with a collared shirt that had never been ironed and his tie tied directly to his neck. Not under the collar, just wrapped around his neck. When I mentioned it to him, he said, "If that's my only problem, then we're in good shape." A direct quote from my colleague. I woke up on an old mattress next to my boyfriend's brother in an abandoned church wearing a bikini in Tuscaloosa. And that was the first time I'd ever done Xanax. She also brought a pink briefcase full of adult toys to work at a law firm because she had an adult toy party to host later in the evening. She lived in a house that didn't have a kitchen. She has 2 pet squirrels and her husband plays in an awful nu metal band. She also crushes up pills on her desk with her keys and snorts them when she thinks no one's looking. We have a one-upper at work who is a gold mine. I can only recall his most recent outlandish claims, which were that he's been in 19 weddings this year, not attended, but been in, and that he had an overweight friend on the top floor of the World Trade Center on 9/11 who made it down to safety and now runs 15 miles a day. I was working in an open concept office where we used an instant messenger to communicate. One day, working late, it's only myself and that guy. He disappeared for like 20 minutes and then came back, but I didn't notice much. He types to me, "Hey, do you like my haircut?" And I look over and he's just locked eyes with me after shaving his head with a razor in the bathroom. I used to work with a guy who was an excellent engineer, but frequently subject to fits of rage when things didn't go well with what he was working on. Picture the scene. Typical cubicle farm with engineers hard at work, and the only sound you hear is the sound of tapping on keyboards. Suddenly, the sound of hysterical angry cursing and someone slamming their keyboard on the desk repeatedly. Everyone leaps to their feet in alarm like a bunch of prairie dogs, scanning the room for the source of the noise. Almost at once, everyone realizes that it's just Tim having another tantrum, smiles at each other, and quietly sits back down. Later, our secretary walks over to his office with a new keyboard, puts it on his desk without a word, and then walks back. A woman at my company has decided instead of paying off her student loans, she'll simply get more degrees. She's 40 plus on her 4th master's degree and does nothing but complain about schoolwork all day. Probably at least $100K in debt. No comprendo. That guy at my current company is John. John is a conspiracy theorist. He believes that the anti-theft RFID things at the doors of Walmart are designed to scan your credit cards and the metal strip in money in your wallet to see how much money you have to spend. John talks about secret CIA trains that run in tunnels under the city. John used to work for a cell phone company and tells us stories of how he installed scanners on light poles on nearly every major road to scan for a unique identifier that all vehicles emit for government tracking purposes. John believes the building we work in has chemicals applied to the HVAC system, which is making us more compliant with government programs. John will never use his ATM card to buy meals because he doesn't want the government to track what he eats. John calls a $20 bill a yuppie meal coupon. I actually thought that one was funny. Ice cream is called whipped lard. Eating at Panda Express is eating an endangered species meal. John once told me about his collection of different sized rubber gloves he has at home. He has a pair that go up to his shoulders for cleaning the bathroom. John also believed that all major leaders of the world belong to the same family tree. Also, our building has anti-earthquake devices attached to it, so the building shakes gently every so often. John claimed that the shakes were the CIA shooting mind control beams up from their underground trains. John believes our secretary at the front desk keeps a log of when John entered and left the building. Most days, John would ride the train to work, and every so often he would say, "Better stay indoors, they're spraying again." Spraying mind control drugs, that is. Sadly, John quit a few months ago. On the day he quit, he sat in his car in the parking garage for 4 hours before he worked up the guts to call his boss on the phone and quit. He instructed that his desk be boxed up and sent to his home. No one has heard from John since. My good friend Paul works in the warehouse at our company. He's gotten into every sort of trouble imaginable. He tipped a towering stack of construction materials over the back of our yard's wall. He slammed the forklift into one of our delivery trucks when he dozed off. He's gone to the wrong construction site 100 miles away from the intended delivery site. But he's a genuinely good-hearted guy, and the company's had mercy on him. He's still with us. Tons of funny stories always coming out of the warehouse from this guy. My personal favorite? Paul's an Iron Maiden fan, and he's always singing while he works. Well, one day, Paul decides to sing a parody version of Caught Somewhere in Time, with the clever lyrics of Caught with Shaft in Hand. So he's just belting out these inappropriate lyrics as he moseys over towards the will call counter. Who should walk in but one of the sales directors giving a tour of the warehouse to a new female salesperson. Paul rounds the corner, continuing the chorus with "Caught with shaft in hand," and bumps directly into the sales director. He plays it off like nothing happened, shakes his hand and the hand of the new employee, who were both giving him odd looks. To add to the hilarity, when they finally depart, we notice his fly's been down the entire time. I'm not even sure where to start. We have that family working in our warehouse. It's a mother and her son and daughter. The son was recently fired for reasons that I'll get to in a moment. They're as trashy as you can possibly be. Think of all the stereotypes and you'll have thought of them. So here's the laundry list. The mother, married to a guy that has dementia and 13 stints in his heart. They filed medical bankruptcy 3 times. Most recently, her husband tried to end himself but ended up only shooting himself in the shoulder. She always wears t-shirts with sayings that she thinks are clever. To really put the icing on the trash cake, she smokes Pall Malls. She and her children commute to work together, but every month their car gets repossessed, so they end up getting a new crappy vehicle. No one is sure how they pull that off. What with all the bankruptcies and other bad credit issues? She watches every reality show and wants to talk about them with anyone who will listen, and doesn't understand when you tell her that you don't watch whatever it is she's talking about. So You Think You Can Dance is a prime example. The daughter. She smoked through all 4 of her pregnancies, claiming that her mother smoked when she was pregnant with her and she turned out fine. She lives in a trailer but gets peeved if you call it a trailer because it's on a permanent foundation. She also has a Tourette's type head twitch and blinking thing going on. She has no neck, just a head that suddenly becomes shoulders. She's constantly broke, but spends every available penny on sending her 2 daughters to beauty pageants, and then makes everyone in the company look at the pageant photos. Surprisingly, they've actually won a few. I would hate to see what the rest of the competition look like. We know she has some sort of psychosis because she has to be medicated at all times. If not, she sees and hears things that aren't there. This has led to her hiding under her desk screaming and crying. She also has some other medical condition that causes her to always be on her period. We know this because she makes us uncomfortable by talking about it all the time. Once, her husband showed up at our office, and while he was waiting for her, he told us that if he had known how crazy she was, he never would have married her, let alone had kids. To boot, she has 4 wiener dogs, one of which she claims is an attack dog that actually fended off a burglar. It was a very elaborate story that ended with a wiener dog launching himself off of the couch and into the burglar's face, drawing blood. No one was apprehended, so if you see anyone with the telltale signs of a weenie dog attack, please notify the authorities. The son. He always has the worst gas known to man. He was inside of a shipping container unloading products with some of our other employees when he kept farting, which ultimately made all of them throw up. It was ghastly. While talking to him one day, he stuck his hand down the back of his pants and said, "Watch this." He then stuck his finger under his mom's nose and told her to sniff. He'd apparently stuck his finger in his butt because his mom threw up. He then repeated the process with his sister before she could be warned. He had to miss a month of work due to a riding lawnmower explosion. He claimed he had been blowed up. He lives in a trailer on his mom's property, but doesn't have electricity, so they just run extension cords from her trailer. He had a boil on his arm that was believed to be a staph infection, and his mother lanced it with a box cutter. It was disgusting. He had a bad habit of wrecking our forklift, and one day drove it off the loading dock. The forks went into the asphalt about 10 inches, and we had to get a special wrecker to come pull it out. A short time after that, he backed into one of the support beams in the warehouse, knocking it completely out from under the roof. The beam was at least 30 feet long, and it's amazing that no one was injured. Sometimes I would find him sleeping hidden behind pallets in our warehouse during work hours. Eventually, his sister ratted him out for being drunk on the job all the time, which explained all the forklift mishaps. When confronted by his mother about the drinking, he went crazy and tried to beat her and his sister with a baseball bat. Other employees intervened and we called the cops. He took off on foot and was apprehended later that day, vowing to get even with all of us for calling the cops. His mom didn't want us to tell them, but whatever. He was wielding a bat. Needless to say, he doesn't work here anymore. There's so much more, but those are just some of the highlights that I can think of off the top of my head. We'll call my coworker from a few years ago Ed. Ed was a British man living in the US. He had pictures of the Bush family as well as a picture of the Queen in his cubicle. He was also a bodybuilder and ate a strict diet of small meats numerous times a day. He had a lot of food pre-made and delivered to him, and he'd bring it into work. It was very common to see Ed eating, and none of us really cared since we knew it was part of his overall workout regimen. He'd often microwave single potatoes, snacks, leftovers, etc. But then there was that day Ed didn't know his fish had spoiled, and he threw it into the microwave. The office smelled horrible for the rest of the day. There was also that one time he came over to my desk with a bleeding face. He said he'd nicked himself while shaving and asked me to clean him up and bandage him. He brought alcohol, prep pads, and ointment and a band-aid. He also told me that once he wanted to have my babies, which was confusing because he was gay. I tolerated all of this because I was lonely and had a crush on him that I didn't understand and never admitted until now. There's this one guy who seems nice, but he's really quiet. He basically sits on his computer all day and browses Reddit. Whenever he's given a project, he does it quickly and goes right back to browsing. He probably thinks that we don't realize or care that he hardly does any real work. But believe me, we all know. Our guy only recently got fired. One of the conclusions we had eventually reached about him was that he was completely incapable of feeling empathy, which is not really the best person to have as your main customer support representative. But that was what he'd been hired to be. He was mostly frightening in that position because he never stopped smiling or being cheerful, even if the customer was freaking out at him or if he was bored out of his mind. This in itself doesn't cause for alarm, but he was a strange dude. On his second week in the office, he found out that there weren't any dentists that provide ozone therapists in our city, so he took 2 days off and drove to a nearby city in order to get his teeth ozoned. He would ask, "How was your weekend?" in the most interested voice you could imagine, inflection perfect with Tobias Funke asking, "How are you?" You could tell him, sure, with him exploding into laughter at every event that happened, no matter what it was. If you asked him how his weekend was, he would be extremely sure it was a great weekend, but then wouldn't be able to recall exactly what he did, ever. After a month of working there, he started complaining that our insurance company, which he wouldn't receive benefits for until he had been there for 3 months, didn't cover his ozone therapy. He kept a steamer crockpot thing in the break room and steamed a mixture of carrots and spinach every single morning, which he would then eat out of a bowl at around 10 a.m. The smell was atrocious, and everyone complained about it the first day he did it, until we found out someone was making that horrible smell on purpose. He called it borscht for unknown reasons, which our Russian salesman nearly flipped out over every time the word came up. He was kind of an idiot when it came to support as well. We have a support ticket system that handles all of our clients for all of the different services we offer. He actually had copy pasta that he was putting into every single ticket with a lot of idiotic troubleshooting steps that didn't apply to 75% of our clientele. When someone called in to report our support center was down, he asked them to submit a support ticket about it. He was overall a bit of a know-it-all, being very good at selling clients things that they didn't need and would later complain they spent thousands of dollars on. By the time he was fired, clients would call in and immediately ask to be forwarded to sales, even for stupid support issues, just so they wouldn't have to talk to him. Not as bad as some people's that guy, but by the time he was fired, everyone in the office was being driven up the wall. Our number of support tickets submitted this past month are at 50% of what they were at last year, after a steady increase for the rest of the year, and I'm fairly certain it's his fault. I will say this, don't discount that guy too quickly. An old friend of mine used to share stories about a coworker that would always say and do wildly inappropriate things, much along the lines of the original poster's examples, and including picking food off of said friend's plate in the break room, uninvited of course. My friend was nice to the guy anyway, despite the annoyances, and considered him a friend. Anyway, long story short, my friend died suddenly one day after he'd quit his job with that guy a while back. The guy was on his Facebook friends and ended up producing quite an outpouring of feelings and sympathy with the family and friends of the deceased. He would note every time he drove by my friend's old house or anything, and not obnoxiously, but in a very genuine and caring way. He was very kind and supportive to all of us that were grieving. He obviously was a very caring and very friendly individual, just totally socially inept. The moral of the story? Some of those guys are just totally weird, but some are actually really nice people that just don't know how to interact well. Give them a chance and you might make an invaluable friend for life. This guy was far more loyal than the trite normal people my friend had worked with, some of which made brief and non-sentimental remarks on his death. That guy seemed to be the only one that was really truly affected by this. Oh man. Last year, I worked with the most intense guy ever. He was ex-military going back to school for his 3rd undergrad or something. On one particular day while we were listening to NPR, a story came on about someone getting shot during a home robbery. Apparently in South Dakota, there's a law which states if someone breaks into your house, you can shoot them dead and not go to jail. I simply stated that I don't think I would be able to kill a person. And he screams in my face, covering me with spittle, "But it's your right!" It became kind of a meme for the other interns. In another instance, he went on a rage to me about how dumb women are, and I'm a woman, and that their only purposes are for breeding and feeding. I got peeved, slam on the brakes, kick him out of the truck, and tell him he's in timeout and I'll be back when he's not going to be a jerk. Best memory ever. Made even better since we were on an Indian reservation and he was not very fond of natives. There's a man at the grocery store I work at. We'll call him Monty because that's his name. I hate this man. He embodies everything that is wrong with society and fills so many stereotypes it isn't even funny. He's from New Jersey. Therefore, in his mind, he must be a mobster. He acts this way all the time. To everyone. Heavy Brooklyn accent, even though he's never been to New York. Self-admittedly. Unnecessarily argumentative and overly confrontational about anything. He acts like people asking him to do things like his job is an affront to him on par with assaulting his mother and kicking the Pope in the balls. This man is built like a 3/4 full sack of crap with thinning hair, zero charisma, and yet he still hits on the female minors we have working here. Did I mention this man is about 70 years old?
Parents, have any of you regretted the names you have given your children? I used to work tech support with a guy whose name was Gandalf. In the 70s, when he was born, Tolkien wasn't even a nerd thing. It was a hippie thing. His parents were big hippies and loved the books. So they named him Gandalf. His sister's middle name is Galadriel. He said at first people rarely recognized the name. It was a weird name, sure, but few people knew he was named after a fictional wizard. Until the movies came out. He hates Peter Jackson. Well, for one thing, leave Peter Jackson alone. The only people that individual has to blame are their parents. And the other thing is, I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up with a name that is very nice, but people bullied me and ridiculed me for it for years. But I don't know. I think Gandalf could work. I think they can make it work. 12 years ago, we had twin boys. We knew one would be Thomas after my wife's uncle, but struggled to name the second. For about 28 hours, he was baby B, when we finally settled on Jeremiah. 2 days later, we introduced them to our pastor, and he said, "Oh, cute, Tom and Jerry." I looked at my wife, and we were both thinking, oh, we did not just do that, but we left it. My God, the fights those brothers must have had. My friend's parents met during the 60s and they were/are crazy hippies, and they have practiced a lot of different religions. When my friend was born, they decided to give him 14 middle names: Dorsey, Abdul, Jaleel, Francis, Brian, Albert, Barney, Willie, Kowalski, Jeffrey, Faith, Lovestar, Breeze. He has a common first and last name, and they said all of that at graduation. Well, goddamn, they might have practiced a lot of different religions, but clearly the son took on Christianity because he honored the crap out of the name his mother and father gave him. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it's a middle name. It's avoidable. I work in a social services agency that deals with children. The names I have seen are quite amazing. Along with random variations of names and brands of alcohol, you get some interesting biblical ones too. Like the 3 kids in one family named Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. The one that I cringed at the most, though, was this poor little girl named Erotica. They are not even giving her a chance. Oh, this makes me wonder if maybe there should be rules where it's like, oh, what's your baby's name? Oh, it's Erotica. Oh, I'm sorry, man, but this baby is immediately being taken to Child Protective Services. I think my mother regrets my name. She wanted to call me Sebastian, but my grandmother insisted she would call me Sebastart, but with a D. She caved and named me Joshua. So when we had our first son, we named him Sebastian. I've never seen my mother so happy. My grandmother calls him by his middle name. I think I'm more interested in the story of why grandmother hates the name Sebastian so much. Is it the name of a lover who scorned her, a mortal enemy, a dog she didn't like? There's a kid at my school called Internet Castle. This is not a joke, by the way. Internet Castle. Hopefully none of these people like giving out absolute full names or anything like that, but I can't help but worry a little bit, and maybe the producers will confirm this with me or not, but are we kind of doxing people by reading these? Well, my mother doesn't regret naming me Shaw. Doesn't seem so bad because it's a fair family name. But as my first name, it causes great confusion. For example, if I introduce myself to someone, I have to clarify that my name isn't actually Sean or Shaw. Then, of course, the conversation goes as follows. Yeah, it's spelled S-H-A-W. And they say, "Are you sure?" Which sounds exactly like "Are you sure?" in my regional accent. He drops an F-bomb at the end of this, but there's no real good supplement for an F-bomb just on its own. I work at a clinic with parental moms. Once baby is born, I help make sure they're coming in for appointments. I can't tell you the feelings I felt trying to schedule an appointment for Brenpen, the newborn. Brenpen sounds a bit silly, but I don't think anything's gonna beat naming your little girl Erotica. Like, it's gonna take something real bad for me to be like, yeah, that's worse than Erotica. My actual first name is Jeff. People think I'm from New Zealand and I'm saying Jeff. Thanks, Mom and Dad. It could still be worse. Consider your initials carefully. My surname begins with a W. My brother had a daughter and named her Jennifer Elizabeth. Pretty vanilla, huh? They got a ton of blankets and cups with Jew engraved on each piece. We aren't Jewish. That's pretty funny, yeah. My wife regrets my kid's initials, FCK, but I think his pickup line choices could be hilarious. My initials are FCK. All I need is you. Okay, yeah, that's really good actually. Almost on topic, my Nigerian friend was telling me that when he was teaching in Louisiana that black people would come up and ask him if their names meant anything back in Africa. Apparently, 2 African Americans were named after furniture, but he was nice about it and said something like Proud Lion and Lord of Many. Line of them was probably for the best, but I'm just picturing him looking them in the eye and be like, you are footstool. My middle name is My Love. It's not my first name, but it still stuns people when I first tell them. That was a little ha-ha at the end, and I just felt like doing a Scooby-Doo laugh. My mother and stepfather picked out and agreed upon a name for my little sister while my mom was pregnant. Her middle name was supposed to be Kate. Stepman never said anything about it. He liked it, was fine with it. Baby gets born, birth certificate is being written out, mom's exhausted, so she lets baby's dad deal with it. A few weeks later, mom takes a look at the new social security card and birth certificate and flips her lid because the middle name on all this paperwork is Lay, even though that name had never come up in discussion. She didn't even know until she stumbled across it by accident quite a bit too late. My parents are hippies that grew up in the 70s. Thankfully, I got away with a reasonable name. Jem. I've seen Jem in the holograms. My 2 younger brothers are named Conan and Torald. Our parents have never expressed regret over any of our names, though. I'm a guy, and my parents were inspired by Harper Lee when naming me. They were really hoping for a girl, and the first choices for names were Kitty or Jem with a G. My dad said they didn't think of any boy names until after I was born. Then they remembered the character in To Kill a Mockingbird and changed Jem to Jem. Voila! Torald. A pretty cool name. And what is with these hippies naming their kids after fictional characters? I mean, even I have a name that's it's not specifically, but I share a name with a few popular fictional characters. My first name is just a letter. It gets better. I have an identical twin brother, and his first name is also a letter. We each have normal middle names, but letters is first names. It's because my dad thought it looked elegant, and not typical letters. I'm talking about 3 of the last letters. Thanks, Dad. Filling out any sort of paperwork for damn near anything is a pain in the butt. I know I can change my name, but I don't want to go through that hassle when I'm already used to the crappy name I was given. To answer OP's question, my dad doesn't regret it, but my mom wishes he would have waited until after the epidural wore off from her C-section to name us. The names are X and Z, so much for privacy. I posted this as a reply, but I thought I should address the justified claims indicating my mom might have gone along with the letters X and Z as first names. So I asked my mom why she was out. She's 5 foot and 95 pounds, she's an emergency room physician, and when the day arrived for my twin and I to be born, she didn't have any contractions. Typically, twins aren't carried full term, but here we are 9 months later and full term. The obstetrician decided that a cesarean would be the safest choice considering my mother was 40 at the time. The anesthesiologist administered the epidural, but it was too large a dose for my mom, seeing as she's such a tiny person. When my mother was having a hard time breathing, she told the anesthesiologist that she knew the area above the diaphragm had been numbed and started to panic because she couldn't breathe, and so the anesthesiologist administered a dose of Valium, so my mom became unconscious. When she awoke, she realized for the first time that my dad definitely married up. I ain't even gonna say anything about the names. In fact, overall, I'm not gonna insult people for the names that they're given or anything. The worst one so far, as I've said, it's erotica. It's still gonna be erotica by the end of this, I imagine. But goddamn, what's with these men and just not discussing with their wives what they're gonna name their children or just going rogue? A friend's middle name is Baldrick. His parents thought it would be funny after watching too much Blackadder. For the uninitiated, Blackadder is a really funny English television series set around the 1500s because Queen Elizabeth is the first is a main character in it, and then there was Blackadder Goes Forth, where it's set in like the trenches of World War II. Anyway, Baldric is basically a massive idiot who usually screws things up, or maybe inadvertently kind of helps in his own stupid way. My legal name was Carne Asada Jones. I had it changed at 18. They basically called him Sliced Beef, for those who don't know. You know what? I'm actually going to give that name second place for worst name on this list. It's still behind Erotica, but not bad, not bad. My friend and her brother are from Taiwan. When they moved to Australia, they were young. Their father chose Western-sounding names for them. My friend ended up with a relatively normal, if old-fashioned name, but he got her brother's name from a thesaurus. His name is Roget. Also, my ex's sister was born in Ethiopia, and whoever filled out the birth certificate must not have had very good English, because her name has about 4 times as many vowels as it strictly needs. And once I saw a girl working in a fast food restaurant with a name tag that read alimony. I have a mate whose name is Irwin. Not horrible, but his brother's is Irvin. Okay, personally, I gotta say, I actually really like the name Roget. I think that sounds cool, but Owen, there's nothing wrong with the name, and Irvin is fine too, I guess, but when I hear the name Irwin, all I'm getting are flashes of that kid from bloody Billy and Mandy. My best friend named her firstborn son Jaden. When she told me the name, I asked her if she really wanted to do that. She said yes. That and her husband liked the name but wanted to make it a little different by adding an additional N. She now regrets it. The fact that she regrets it shouldn't bring me joy, but it does. Good luck on those biz cards, little guy. I am not quite sure what's actually wrong with that name. It looks a little bit silly on paper, I guess, but everyone in the comments below even is just like, oh, this name sucks. I knew a girl in high school named Cassiopeia. People called her Cass for short. I got why she was named that. Her dad was an astronomer by profession. There's not a single thing wrong with that name. It's kind of cute, if anything. I once knew a guy in high school whose last name was Sweat, and the poor dude's parents made his first name Richard. That's right. Connect the dots. See, I don't think that's that bad, really, because it's just the nickname that everyone, knows goes with that for some reason, but that's not their name. But, of course, it is unfortunate. My ex and I had a great marriage until it fell apart 14 years in. Up to that point, the worst thing we ever fought about was baby names and paint colors. She wanted our first to be Zebulon Zachariah. Not even kidding. We fought and fought about it. She was dead serious, and I was completely baffled as to how she thought that was a good idea. Finally talked her into a more sane first name and conceded Zachary as a middle name. Second child, she wanted D'Artagnan. Little Dart, she would say. Oh, hell no. We fought over this one while she was in labor. On the way to the hospital. She wasn't giving up. I won that one too, with something not common but sane at least. Third child, she was back on the D'Artagnan train. Fought for 9 solid months. Thank God that one was a girl. Okay, Zebulon, kinda ridiculous, but D'Artagnan, ooh, Dart. Darty boy, D'Artagnan, my friend. Nah, D'Artagnan sounds cold as fur. Maybe you could shorten Zebulon to just Zeb. That sounds kinda cool. Just Zeb, though. Do not put Zebulon on the birth certificate. I went to a summer camp with a guy called Raymond. Seriously, first name Raymond, second name Raymond. Naturally, we gave him hell for it. Me. So, were your parents drunk or something? Raymond squared. I was named after a very well-respected relative, actually. Me. So, were his parents drunk? He didn't talk to me much after that. 10 out of 10 roasting, I'll give you that, but see, this is why I don't really make fun of people's names or anything like that, because you do not control your name when you are born. I'm not going to take the mick out of someone for something that they didn't have a choice in. My husband and I had a deal. If it was a girl, I got to pick, and if it was a boy, he did. Our son's name is Loki. I'm not a big fan, but he loves it. I keep hoping it will grow on me. Norse god of mischief? You're just asking for a little Hellraiser at that point. Now I got that picture of the grim adventures of Billy and Mandy in my head, where Billy goes to Valhalla and Loki is this skinny guy pulling an elastic band, and Odin goes, Loki, remember what happened last time, as he points to his eye. Yeah, all you normies will bring up Marvel or something, but frankly, I'm so totally goddamn done with Marvel. We named our daughter Isabel because it was a name on both of our lists that matched. We wanted a long name, something regal but could be shortened up. We talked about Elizabeth, Victoria, those sort of names. Decided on Isabel. My only regret is we did this as Twilight was dying down and everyone assumed her name was Isabella, even after I spelt it out over the phone for them several times, with an E on the end, Isabel. People would ask and still ask, do you call her Bella? That'd be so cute. No, shut the hell up. You know what? That would actually, that'd be kind of infuriating. Not a parent and sort of the opposite here. My brother and his then fiancée were about to have a kid, and they argued about the name all the way to the delivery room. He wasn't around when they had to do the paperwork for the baby's name, and he was upset when she named their son Logan. I mentioned to him that it's not a terrible name. After all, it's Wolverine's name. About a week or so later, I hear him on the phone with a friend talking about how he didn't like the name until he realized that his kid is named after Wolverine. Ah, Logan. Strong, manly name. It's a name you gotta live up to, though. My wife and I have a daughter that we named Jordan. I'm fine with that. My wife is a very independent woman, and Jordan is kind of a strong name for a girl. Now we're thinking about having another kid, and if it's a boy, she wants to name him Michael. Jordan and Michael. Michael and Jordan. I'm 6'7", she's 6'3", and both very white. She somehow thinks it won't be weird if our most likely tall children are named after freaking Michael Jordan. I don't want to be answering questions or listening to jokes about their names for the next 20 years, though. I don't really get this dude's damage, to be honest. I mean, is that what people are gonna think about when you hear them or call them? It's like, Michael Jordan. Yeah, people are gonna think it, but it's like, whatever, who gives a crap? I have a friend from high school who has 4 kids. Oldest is Landon, perfectly normal if very popular. Second is Caden, getting more odd, but still in the realm of normal. Third and only girl is Kensley. Now you're just making things up. And she's due any day with her 4th, Brogan. I really hope they are done since the names are getting progressively worse. My cousin also just had a baby, and I have no idea how to pronounce the name. Ellie, best guess is like Ellie, but no one can confirm this. Okay, well, earlier I said that you can name your kids whatever you want and stuff, just don't make it erotica or anything like that. It's like the people earlier saying Jaden with a double N at the end and stuff like that. I don't get the point of naming your kids pretty regular stuff, but being like, oh, it's going to be a regular name, but I'm going to like add different letters to it so it just sounds the same. And it's like, what's the point? I guess this will get buried, but this thread seems to be filled with not answers to the question. So I named my oldest daughter Darian because my husband, then we were 17 and very stupid, wanted to call the baby Damien. And this was my compromise because I wasn't naming a child after the demon child in The Omen. Also, there was a female DJ on the radio at the time called Darian, so I thought it would work. Well, it turns out that Darian is most often a boy's name and very often a black name. My daughter is in her 20s now, and she has never let me live it down. Everywhere she goes, people expect a black man. She's a nerdy, short, white chick. I swear I had good intentions. I was literally just thinking to myself as I read that Darian's more of a boy's name, isn't it? Used to work with a girl named Latrina. Latrine jokes constantly. Any name that has an easy joke to make is a bad idea. Poor kid is going to hear it 1,000 times. Oh boy, howdy, do I know that feeling. 50 years ago, the family a few doors down from me had a son. They called him Boyd. His surname is George. They are fundamentalist Christians. Bet they regretted that. So rather than Boy George, it's Boyd George? In Chile, we have an urban legend that in Valparaiso, one of our main port cities, there are many kids named Usnavi. Why, you ask? Well, being a port city, it is host to ships from worldwide navies from time to time, including the U.S. Navy. Legend says that any girl who gets pregnant after a night of party with a U.S. Navy sailor names her child with the name tag his theoretical father had, and that tag says U.S. Navy, hence the name Usnavi. If that is actually true, that's really interesting. I found a Verizon bill on the ground one time. Figured I would dispose of it in case it had any important information. Guy's name was Michael Michaels. Little bit silly, but definitely memorable. Not a parent myself, but I tried to warn my friend that everyone was going to be naming their kid Jacob because of the damn Twilight movie, and she was cursing her kid to years of sharing classes with other people of the same name. Her and I both have very common names for our age group, and she agreed that it was really annoying. And she also hates those Twilight movies, but she stuck to Jacob nonetheless. Sure enough, Jacob was the #1 most common name for the year her Jacob was born. Poor baby Jacob. Poor all baby Jacobs. Don't name your baby Jacob. I think this personal vendetta for the name Jacob goes beyond the Twilight movies. My mom was going to name me Tawny, as in Tawny Kitane, or better known as the chick from that Whitesnake video. It was the late 80s and my mom was 17. She didn't go through with it because when I was born, I didn't look like a Tawny. My brother was named after Samuel Adams. No, not one of the founding fathers of the United States, but after the beer. I don't think they regret it. I just think it's interesting to share. Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm not really feeling Tawny either.
My mom wanted to name me Stuffin'. What the hell is a stuffin'?
I don't know, bro. Maybe she just thought it was cute. My wife is fortunately somewhat more sensible than me and vetoed all of my wacky name choices, so I do not have a Shamalar, nor a River, Temperance, Winfred, or a Ford. I'm still a bit sore about Winfred and River, but I do concede that she had a point with the rest in hindsight. I was allowed more leeway with the middle names, and my eldest has the middle name Neris, as in Major Kira, which would be fine except that it's spelled exactly the same as a Welsh name, which is pronounced Neris, which is entirely not what I was going for. My son's middle name is Zed, so when anyone asks him what the Z in his name stands for, he can say Zed, which I thought at the time was really cool. Then sometime thereafter I came to the conclusion that it was stupid. Now I don't know what I think. He seems to like it though. Oh, and my daughter, whose middle name is Storm, is afraid of thunder and lightning. That last bit is pretty cute. Also, I don't know, I think some of the names this guy comes up with sound pretty cool. Not the namer, but the named. My rents named me Andrew, but it was recorded as Adnaru. Apparently, my mother noticed soon after, but didn't actually care. She then lost my birth certificate, so I never knew. I found out when I got it replaced trying to get my license. I had to file court papers and everything to get it changed, and she thought the whole thing was hilarious. So no, my parents didn't regret anything. This has got me paranoid about my own birth certificate now. I'm an Andrea and I'm a guy. The half-Italian explains it. Didn't help growing up in West Virginia. Hey, that's a girl's name. Not in Italy, I explain over and over. I never had much of a nickname, but I'm pretty sure it's really stunted my life. People can't remember it or they say it wrong because they just don't believe it. It's definitely a big problem. Not as much as I live in New York City, but still doesn't help. What was she thinking? She's only third generation, too. She should know naming a boy a common girl's name in West Virginia was an awful idea. I know I keep alluding to my name and stuff, and this isn't about me, but I also suffered with people insulting me and telling me that I had a girl's name or likening my name to a girl's name. So yeah, this one kind of hits home for me. I know a guy whose name is Tony, but it is spelled Tony. That is so freaking dumb. No, that's the worst name. That's the worst name. For a smidgen of context for those of you who maybe don't understand, their name is spelled Toeknee. It's dumb. That's so dumb. My dad wanted to change my name when I was about 6 months old because everyone at work was giving him so much crap. My mom's name is Pat. My dad's name is Rick. My name is Patrick.
What do you miss about being young? No daily body aches or pain. My childhood house was on a huge hill. I used to stand on the top of the hill in my snowsuit and just jump. Anything over 8 inches of snow, I would just slide all the way down. I think about this often, especially as time keeps turning. Yeah, I feel this one. I get random knee pain every so often. Not sure if it's from working out wrong or just getting older, but legit knocks me out for like 3 days or so. I look like I'm walking with an invisible cast on my whole leg. I miss my hairline. As someone who's losing their hair at 16, I envy you. Oh man, where do I start? Saturday morning cartoons, being carried to bed after falling asleep late on the couch, highly interested in astronauts, space, and dinosaurs. Every kid was. Everything seemed bigger. The small fort you built was gigantic. The skinny high school student that seemed like he was 25 years old. All teachers were old AF. The toilet in your school felt like a scary dungeon. Playing in the mud with your siblings and cousins, while your parents were screaming at your face for doing it, but you all knew you were going to do it again. You just knew everything would be okay because your parents were always taking care of you. And if they were angry with you, you could always just go to your grandparents. And of course, falling asleep in the back seat of the van while on your way to grandma's. The sound and feel of the off-ramp would wake me up just as we were getting home. Those were the days. Having more energy and my body not aching. Dude, energy. I could just wake up and my youth propelled me right into my day. Now I'm in bed for an hour past my alarm. I need 2 cups of coffee just to get moving. My wrists hurt after decades of using my hands repetitively for work. I get hot flashes, I'm unmotivated. I do things because I have to, not because I want to. As I get older myself, I'm curious how many people feel the lack of energy are also people that aren't very active. I think we underestimate how having a healthier lifestyle can really make us feel better. I say this as someone who has recently started taking their health more seriously. And man, I do feel so much better. Living in a world where it felt like the future was going to be better instead of worse. Honestly, as a 15-year-old, I gotta say I don't really think the future is that bright. Due to things like social media, we're being overloaded with negative information like climate change, oceans being polluted, inflation, high house prices, unemployment, and a lot more. Even really young kids, around 8 or 9 years old, are brought in contact with these topics, which is concerning in my opinion. I'm in my early 60s, and in the last 25 years, the media has been bought up by 6 different entities. There's so little difference in what they're all saying, and real investigative journalism has been replaced by PR releases. I've had to go to some YouTubers and some Substack people to get any meaningful news. On the bright side, I quit yelling at my television since I quit watching anything news related. I can relate, I rarely watch big news outlets. I watch people on YouTube and streaming services to cut through all the crap for me. The complete lack of responsibility. Yeah, I miss those days where my biggest problem was having to read out loud. But you can't know what a non-problem that is in the moment. Because back then, it was a big deal, as were middle school politics, failing a test, etc. It takes perspective to understand fully, which you don't have when you're young. Like seeing a toddler cry over a dropped ice cream cone. It's literally the worst thing in their whole life. I'm middle-aged and I greatly prefer it. Personally, my give a crap meter is broken and I have tools, experience, and perspective to actually deal with things. Either way, being a person can be tough at any age. Thinking that everyone I met and talked to was my best friend. This is quickly becoming my issue. I made friends so easily in middle school. Now everyone I made friends with is leaving, or I can't find new ones to talk to. If you need help with this, I would say join online communities if you can. Play video games with people online, or just try to do something new that involves people. This is the honest truth, but some of my best friends are people that I didn't grow up with and I met online. And yes, if you're curious, I have met them in real life. Not having to work. Oh man, what I would give to have 2 months off a year again. Being able to slam half a buffalo chicken style pizza with no consequences. Half? I know, what a lightweight. I miss the optimism and promise of a brighter future. Nowadays, it's all about holding on to what I have. Brain plasticity. It was so easy to quickly learn large amounts of information in my teens and early 20s. Now I'm almost 40, my learning capacity has slowed down significantly. I'm in my 40s. One thing that I've done and I still keep on doing is studying. It's like working out. So in my younger years, I had a very broad range in IT, from storage, servers, networks, OS, etc. So I've been studying that every year, 1 to 3 subjects. This year it was firewalls, I got certified, OS also got certified, and now about to do project management. Last year was a different OS only. Year before that was storage. Anyhow, you get the idea. I got 4 kids too, so it's a hard challenge. The takeaway is to never give yourself a break. Once you get stagnant, it's hard to come back. Since you are almost in your 40s, I suggest you take something easy to start and continue. I'm also a proponent of lifelong learning. I completed a degree in programming and web development during the pandemic. And I'm also planning on going back to school within the next 3 years to start working towards a series of degrees in entomology. I just accepted a job offer from a company that is willing to train me to do software testing and technical writing. It just sucks knowing that my next venture into graduate school won't be with the brain I had during my first PhD program, or even the one I had 5 years ago. I can still synthesize information just fine, but my capacity to learn information quickly and retain it just isn't as vast as it was when I was younger. It just now takes longer and requires more repetition to learn the same amount of information. It's 4 things for me: collagen, energy, motivation, and not feeling like time is running out. To be honest, time running out is the biggest thing I think about, and this is because I constantly compare it to things I want to do. For example, if I want to write a manga and get it turned into an anime someday, I heard that it can take up to 2 to 5 years to make 1 season of an anime. So that means I should have started selling a successful manga years ago. Boredom. Before Apple put computer interfaces in our pockets, phones were mostly just phones. Boredom was common and also led to a lot of new experiences and serendipity. The lack of experiential context, aka not being jaded AF, and this innate desire to just use my body for things. I used to have an inner drive that needed to be expanded or I felt like I was going crazy. My innate desire is now attuned to relaxation instead. Mine's simple. My parents. Oof, I relate. I miss ya, Grandpa. Getting rock throbbing, well, you know, if you're a guy. Mostly a working pancreas. I'm 30, but being skinnier and my skin. Seeing aging on my face is hard to deal with. I also miss my old melons. I feel like mentally and life-wise I'm in a much better place now than I ever was. I just miss my physical youth. Oh my god, do you feel like it hit you really quickly? I always had it in my head that aging started at maybe 40, but I feel like my looks completely changed from like 29ish onward, and I agree, it's hard to deal with. I miss my old melons too. I'd love to have my physical youth back. I guess being creative and being naturally skinny. Yeah, same. I miss my waist and my motivation to be creative all of the time. I used to write a lot, and I also loved to dance, but then puberty hit me and I gained a freaking ton of weight. And I got bullied relentlessly for it by everyone. So that sucked. However, I would say I don't really miss my childhood. I now have more freedom in decision making and I don't have to go to the loud, overstimulating family or friend meetings anymore. Wait a minute. This person said they stopped dancing and writing because puberty and gaining weight? I feel like those are two things that you could still do easily. But I guess maybe the bullying played a big factor in it. 20-year-old me. I work at 7 a.m., so if I stop drinking at 6 a.m., I'll be good to go. Me now. How dare you suggest starting a movie at 8 p.m.? Being ignorant to how awful and hurtful the world can be. I guess I'm lucky. I'm 36 and I don't miss a damn thing. I'm better off physically, mentally, and financially than I've ever been. Beautiful wife and family. Self-employed. Life is good. Same here. Almost 10 years older than you, and I'm better, fitter, smarter, richer, happier than I've ever been. My friendships, career, marriage, body, and wallet are all much better at this age. No, I don't look 23, but that's okay. Preferably even. I find that people who are convinced that you get fat, frumpy, lonely, isolated, and achy at age XYZ are living in ways that reinforce that mindset. Yeah, I would have to agree with that last statement. I personally know a lot of people that have the ability to better their lives, but choose not to. And they often end up grumpy. That full-fledged confidence I had in myself. I was 100% sure that I knew absolutely everything and acted accordingly. Yes, it was absolutely obnoxious for those around me, but the confidence of 18-year-old me was unmatched. Now, I find this one funny because I was 100% this way. I thought I was going to win an Oscar and be making blockbuster films by the age of 25. Oh, how full of myself I was. I still want to do those things, but I'm a bit more realistic on how hard it is to get to that point. Also, being a content creator, I have some younger viewers that think like this now, and it's funny to see that confidence, or better, ignorance, knowing that I was once the same way. My metabolism. Just so you know, if you drag yourself to the gym a few days a week and put on some muscle, you'll raise your metabolism. Not just from the exercise itself. Once you build some muscle, you burn more calories at rest too. There are a lot of 50-year-olds at the gym who look and feel great. It just doesn't come free anymore. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if any of that's true, but I can say working out does make you feel better. When you're in school and it sucks, you can think to yourself that it's just a temporary ordeal on a way to something better. And there's a sort of general idea of the path you're on. When you're in a crappy job, you can quit and look for another crappy job, but there's nothing other than jobs that you're heading towards for the next half century or so. Even if you're in a good job, sooner or later, you just get more stuff piled on you until it becomes a bad job, at least in my experience. I agree and disagree with this. I did have a super chill job before becoming a content creator, but over time it beat me down and it made me question what I was doing with my life. Nothing is more motivating, in my opinion at least, than seeing the years fly by and seeing that you aren't any closer to your goals. It'll make you reevaluate your life and desires. As for the getting a good job or sooner or later it'll become a bad job, I don't think I agree with that. I really enjoy my current job over any other job that I've had. And if there's things I don't like about it, I try to find ways to improve it. I don't know, if I'm still doing this in a few years, maybe I'll think differently, but right now, I think it's pretty awesome. Waking up and knowing that I could realistically end up doing something completely unexpected that night. I could end up at a concert, some crazy road trip, a festival we just discovered, etc. That and the music. Life is so boring now. I technically still do all the fun stuff I used to, but after 2020, I'm just super anxious about everything. The simplicity of life. When I was a kid, a perfect day kind of looked like this. Wake up when I want, spend the morning at either the library or the comic store, go home for lunch, head out with some buddies to get up to no good for a few hours, head home for dinner, read some books/comics I picked up earlier that day, then finish the day with a gaming session on the console. I didn't know any better. That was just life. Now, if I have a day like that, I need to plan ahead like 2 weeks in advance. Clear my entire schedule, turn off my phone for the day, make sure all the meals are prepped ahead of time, or go out to a fast food joint. And then I can have a day that kind of resembles that. I need to put in the mental energy and planning just to have a real day off. And I don't have kids, so I get to do that every once in a while. If I did have kids, I would never have a day off. That's a 24/7 job. I can't even imagine it. The idea of stressing out and planning my whole day off is counterintuitive to the concept of it. But if I don't do it that way, it's not gonna happen. You know, I can totally relate to this. I am a workaholic, it feels like, and if I do have a day off where I'm not working the job that actually pays me money, I'm still doing something along the lines of like writing for a comic book or trying to write a short film or just streaming. I can't really remember the last day I just had a day off to do nothing. It definitely needs to be planned. The ability to enjoy things without thinking about the inner workings of things. Nowadays, it's hard to really enjoy anything without thinking about the people behind it, the corners they cut, the agenda they're trying to push, etc. It's really hard to innocently enjoy anything anymore the older I get because the mythicism of everything kind of fades away in the understanding that someone is behind this, and it sucks. Knees. Honestly though, I'm 33 and I'm now in the washed up athlete bucket. I miss the days where I could go ham and wake up the next day feel like nothing happened. Sleeping. Years of shift work and being emergency response for stuff has left me with the inability to sleep properly. My woman says the butterfly in my spirit animal has given up because of how lightly I sleep and how instantly I'm ready for action if disturbed. It's a real bastard. Not much, truthfully. I'm a better person now overall, in better shape, figured out school, and I'm married with 2 wonderful kids. My hobbies are still there, but now I get to share them. Okay, maybe I miss my old Saturday morning cartoons. Looking at you, Reboot and Beast Wars. Dude, I tried watching Beast Wars as an adult, and I couldn't get past the cringe dialogue in the first few episodes. I remember loving that show as a kid, but it's so dated now and I don't want to try watching it again and ruin any of the nostalgia I have left. Saturday morning cartoons were dope though, definitely programmed us to look forward to the weekends. I am so glad that somebody mentioned the show Reboot, because for anybody that doesn't know, basically it was like a 3D cartoon. But the craziest thing about Reboot was the ending was in the name of the show. Spoiler alert for a show that's over 20 years old, but the finale of the show has all the characters die because the computer they're in gets rebooted. Thinking about that as I got older, I was just like, dude, that was pretty morbid for a kid's show. Wild stuff. Perfect eyesight. As someone who got glasses during the pandemic, because I thought it was a product of panic attacks, I will say the clarity that I have with them on is insane. Really made me feel my age for that moment. Absolutely not giving a flying crap about playing video games all day, every day for weeks. And with the boys. Nowadays, me and the boys are busy with work, and when it's not work, it's our romantic partners. Haven't gamed with the boys for more than an afternoon in years. Being able to make friends because, hey, we're similar ages. Even in my 20s, I would go out into a different city and just blend in and party with a gang of similar age strangers. No problem. The joy of Pokemon. I mean, now at 29, I still play Pokemon, but I have vivid and joyful memories of playing Pokemon Yellow in the car coming home from my grandparents on my Game Boy. The streetlights kept me being able to play the game. The feeling of pure happiness when I got by myself, through the forest on my way to challenge Brock. Dude, same. I feel this completely as I am a similar age to you. Pokemon Go was also so good a few years back. Lack of worries. I miss the days when my worry was if my crush was going to notice me that day. Now I worry about having enough money to one day buy a house and support future kids. Having time to clean my house, eating healthy to avoid health issues, doing well in my career, while maintaining friendships. It's not necessarily what I miss about being young, but as a kid, I always wished that I was 16, 18, 21, pivotal ages in a person's life. But now that I've been all of those ages, I'd give up so much to go back 10 years where life was just innocent. 2 big reasons or timelines. Being under 13. I really miss how simple life was. Nothing but playing video games, hanging out with friends, going fishing, and playing in the woods. Just good old-fashioned kid stuff. Every day was a little adventure. After 13 and on through college, life definitely wasn't as simple, but you still have your whole life ahead of you to look forward to. The possibilities for future are limitless. Now at 37, I look at life as being middle-aged. I live a great life, but I definitely long for my youth. Our parents are facing their morality, and I look at life as being closer to the end than the beginning now. It sounds morbid, but it's the reality of things. My friends are fat, bald, or both. People have been married and divorced, including myself. People have died, pets have died, and we move on. Life just doesn't have the magic it did when we were young, and there isn't a nostalgia rabbit hole satisfying enough to truly take me back. Well, damn. Now I'm depressed. Why not end the video talking about what I miss about being young? I heard a lot of people talking about their looks and how they feel physically. I have to say, I don't mind the way I look right now. My mustache actually looks pretty great compared to when I was younger, and my hairstyle has definitely improved. If I eat healthy and work out regularly, I feel pretty great. But I think the one thing I really miss about being young was the simplicity of everything. You never had to defend why you liked something or why you thought something was the best thing ever. You didn't have a million questions on why your crush didn't like you. It was because she didn't like you or think you were cute enough. Simple as that. Whereas today, you end up asking yourself, did they not find me attractive? Was it because they didn't like my job or where I live? Was it my laugh? Maybe she didn't like the way I dressed. Maybe it was because I said something that she didn't agree with. And so on and so on. But one thing that I didn't see on this list today was the lack of choices. I miss when I only had one video game to play because I became the greatest player at that game. I was doing speed runs of games before I even knew what speed runs were. I came from a family that couldn't buy new video games all the time, so I got one and I played it until you couldn't play the game anymore. Nowadays, great games are being released for free in hopes that you make in-app purchases. So many amazing games come out now that I beat them once and I move on to the next because I don't have time to collect every trophy in the games anymore. Oh, there is 10 different alternate endings to this game? I guess I'll watch the other 9 on YouTube. There used to be this thrill that came with playing the same game over and over again. Now that is definitely something that I wish I could experience again.
Divorce lawyers of Reddit, what's the worst way you've seen someone screw over their spouse? My uncle represented this guy getting a divorce from his wife of 15 years. Super toxic breakup, and they split everything 50-50. Even the land that the house they lived in sat upon. Well, she decided to build a house right behind the other house. Mind you, this was a lot of land, probably 200 yards separating both home sites. So the back of the houses faced each other. The house gets built and my uncle gets a call from his client asking about the legality of a situation he'd gotten himself into. Apparently, his ex-wife would spend a lot of time in her backyard, so he saw her all the time. What he did was buy a female dog and name it the same name as his ex-wife. Anytime he would let his dog back in from her being outside, he would yell, "Susan, you B-word, get in here!" He would also yell if she was peeing on the flowers. "Susan, you B-word, quit peeing on the flowers!" Or, "Susan, you B-word, quit digging in the dirt!" The ex-wife called the cops on him a couple of times, but there was nothing they could do because the dog was registered under the name of Susan, and she was in fact a female dog. So there you go. The couple separated 10 years ago, but didn't officially divorce until a couple years ago. She was going to get his house, so he burned it down, then faxed her the transfer of ownership forms. He might be going to jail for arson, though. I worked at a law firm that was subpoenaed as part of a divorce between a partner at the firm and a partner at another major law firm. The woman issued more than 70 subpoenas to banks, firms, investment companies, you name it. She was convinced he had squirreled away $20+ million overseas behind her back. It got so bad that she dug up receipts from 25 years ago to try to put together his grand conspiracy puzzle. In the end, after she racked up $1.5 million in legal fees and 7 different lawyers, The judge said that this is ridiculous. There was no conspiracy, and you're not entitled to a portion of this phantom $20 million. Mind you, this was a major law firm partner who was acting this way. She made millions per year in her career, but she apparently lost her mind. Bad separation. Wife filed a restraining order on the husband. Very common. Wasn't a terrible guy, but not great either. A year into the divorce, his mother was dying. He asked his sister to speak with his ex-wife and asked to bring the kids to see her in the hospital before she died. The wife never did. Instead, she went to the court and said he violated the restraining order by trying to contact her. You can't contact someone through another party. He admitted to it and explained the situation, but was found in breach of the order. His mother died while he was locked up, and the wife never brought the kids to see her. Story from my parents who are lawyers. So throughout the divorce proceedings, there was a car that was a huge point of contention between the husband and wife. After months and months of saying he would never let the wife have the car, the husband concedes in exchange for something great, like one of their summer houses. It turns out he'd been driving the car for 3 hours every day in a big loop around the city, putting thousands and thousands of miles on it, basically making it worthless. The amount of planning and spite that went into that was amazing. I did some consulting work for 2 divorce attorneys when I was in grad school. Their client was a career airline pilot. His wife worked part-time, so there was a huge income disparity. It was an ugly divorce. During the process, but before the final decree, tax time rolled around. The wife's attorney calls my guys and says, her accountant just called. If they can just share their W-2s and file jointly, they each stand to save about $8,000 over filing separately. My guys took that info to the husband. He says, screw her. Losing $8,000 is going to be way worse for her than it will for me. Cold as ice, man. Over here in the Netherlands, most legal costs are paid for by the government if your income is below a certain threshold. In practice, this means that if one of the spouses in a divorce has little to no income and the other one has a normal income, the one with the normal income will have to pay a lot if the process drags on. Considering there are plenty of ways to drag it on, I've seen cases approach ridiculous amounts of billable hours. There is a catch to this, however. Your lawyer is paid a set amount if he or she is paid by the government. However, should the money you receive after a divorce or whatever exceed a certain number, you're expected to pay your own lawyer, which is the reason we still keep track of the hours in these cases. So this one woman who thought she was screwing over her ex-husband by dragging the divorce over multiple years got a payout of 40,000 euros by the end of it. Unfortunately for her, she had to surrender most of that straight back in lawyer costs. There was a certain sense of justice in there. Also proves time and again that when there is conflict, the only true winners are usually the lawyers. Banker here. Had heaps of situations where joint overdraft/credit card comes up just before the divorce to absolutely surprise one of the parties. Drained down to zero, of course. Especially bad when it's students or young kids who find themselves heartbroken after the breakup and with debt they can't afford. I had a guy who was married to a woman who slept with another guy, had that other guy's baby, and never told the husband. Then, for other reasons, they start filing divorce proceedings. A paternity test is done, the husband finds out the kid isn't his, and the courts rule that he still has to pay child support because it's in the best interests of the kid. I handled a divorce between a wife who was a teacher and a husband who was a CVS cashier. I represented the wife. For all intents and purposes, the wife was the breadwinner of the family, and she supported herself, her husband, and their 2 children. I should note, one of the children was severely autistic and required intensive and expensive rehab and education. During the process of the divorce, the husband, living alone, sued the wife, caring for both children, for temporary spousal support. He met all the statutory guidelines to receive it, but it just came off as slimy. At the day of the hearing, the judge reviewed all of the facts and spent 20 minutes tearing the husband a new one. He called him a vile creature that was everything wrong with society. The judge then told us that his hands were tied and that he was forced to grant the spousal support, but he let everyone know how little he thought of the husband. As we were leaving the court, the husband just kept saying to my crying client, "Just like Goodfellas, screw you, pay me." It was literally humanity at its worst. I'm not a divorce lawyer, but being a banker, I get to delve into the personal lives of people, and this is what a customer had told me. Well, basically, the divorce was cut and dry, but as a professional, that's not my business why. But I'm worried about his financials though. My guy was the breadwinner in the house. He was a construction foreman, I believe, so he was the guy planning, paying, and watching his employees. He was great. Apparently, his wife wanted everything. But the thing that ticked him off the most was the fact that she took the boat, his boat that he had purchased before ever meeting her. The funny thing is though, she can't afford anything to move the boat with, like a truck. So he had to legitimately move his boat with his truck to some place she was staying at and just leave it. He lost his boat. He asked me at the end how old I was. I tell him 21. He told me never to get married. I'll get to keep all my stuff at the end. I saw a future ex-wife fight vigorously over disability benefits of a not yet retired career military guy. She had a new guy to bankroll her and legal fees were nothing to her. So she dragged out asset division and divorce proceedings for months over not yet accrued disability benefits of her soon-to-be ex-husband. Total amount to which she would have been entitled? About $400. That is before Supreme Court decided disability benefits are not marital property. It was some very petty bull. Wife and husband number 1 divorce with a child. Wife gets custody of child. Husband number 1 pays child support. Wife marries husband number 2. Husband number 2 adopts the child. Husband number 1 is no longer on the hook for child support as husband number 2 is now legally the father. Wife and husband number 2 get a divorce. Because of the adoption, husband number 2 has to pay child support for the child. Wife remarries husband number 1. Now the child lives with husband number 1, the biological father, and husband number 2, the adoptive father, still has to pay child support. My wife is a divorce attorney, so she told me about this one. The couple was still living together during the divorce process, but separate bedrooms and all that. Anytime the husband would buy a snack like chips or crackers, he'd come home to his soon-to-be ex-wife, who would smash the bag until the snack was dust but never open it. So anytime he'd go to eat a snack that he thought was new, he'd only end up disappointed. He was not awarded a restraining order or anything for this either. He was super mad about the dust snacks, however. I was a clerk of the court and we handled a lot of divorce files. You wouldn't believe how many people submit nude pictures of their soon-to-be exes into court to record as evidence. Not because the pictures are relevant in any way to divorce proceedings, but simply to humiliate them. Court files, unless sealed by the judge, are public record, so anyone who cares to look can access the court file and all the exhibits. Family court is the most depressing division. Don't send nudes to people. The husband cheated on his wife and she found out. One day she went back to their old house and put shrimp in all the curtain rods. The husband, who was trying to sell the house, couldn't figure out where the smell was coming from. He ends up selling it at a massive loss and below value due to the smell. The wife was the one who ended up buying it. The husband was a pretty good dude, as he was a good dad to the kids and was a good provider for the family. He wanted to get the divorce over with as amicably as possible, but the wife, who had actually cheated on him, wanted everything, including the guy's soul apparently. She got the house, custody of the kids, and alimony, but they both ended up racking up thousands of extra dollars in attorney's fees over a vase and a journal. Both items belonged to the husband's grandmother and were her only possessions that made it through the Holocaust before she immigrated to the US. The judge ended up ruling that the wife got possession of those items too. As soon as she got her hands on them, she smashed the vase with a hammer and burned the journal. She left the pieces of the vase and the ashes of the journal at the doorway of his one-bedroom apartment he had been financially forced to move into. I did some work for the attorney on this case. Local investment broker who's done well. Strong practice and very affluent client base. Wife owns a small shop in the local community. A pet pastime. Doesn't really turn profit. Been trying to get pregnant for a couple of years. Working with reproductive doctors and clinics. Wife finally gets pregnant. 1 in a million chance. Has the baby and it's a boy. Fast forward a couple of months. The wife has to go to the market for her shop and takes a day trip to the big city a couple of hours away. The husband prepared for this and takes the opportunity to have the baby tested for paternity. Not his. When they started at the fertility clinic, he was tested and knew he was shooting blanks. So he contacts his attorney, my boss, and we start the plan. While we're preparing the case, we have a PI follow his wife. He follows her to a few doctor visits, tennis lessons, lunch at the country club daily, and hanging out with her friends. Her friends decide to throw her a birthday party at the country club. This is our opportunity. I serve her the divorce papers, loudly asking her name, and after confirming, announce the reason for the divorce: infidelity. You are hereby ordered to appear in the blank county court, blah blah blah. Her friends are stunned. Discovery reveals that she and her friends are all cheating in the same circles. We go to court and present evidence showing the husband is not the father and request to have his name removed from the birth certificate. The judge, not wanting the child to become a ward of the state, orders her to produce a list of all the people she slept with during the reasonable window of conception. She provides the list. During the next court appearance, 10 men show up running the full gamut of personalities. 1 doctor, 1 architect, a tennis coach, 2 chefs, 1 trust fund prince, and a few others to round out the mix. One was actually the father of the person they really needed, but when she said John Doe, she didn't specify John Doe Jr. All were ordered to take a DNA test. Our client succeeds in getting his name removed from the birth certificate, no child support, and no alimony. Wife strikes a deal with the baby daddy for child support and support payments for a number of years. She does end up winning. It was the doctor. Part of the agreement is she has to move from the area, paid for by the doctor. NDA signed. The doctor was very rich and must protect his name and reputation. The court allowed no dad on the birth certificate because of guaranteed support for the child, a trust fund. The wife was at work when the husband closed on their house, but he took his mom and she signed the papers. Years later, they divorce and wife demands the house, but gets an eviction notice from the mom. Wife had no idea they'd been paying rent. I was approached to handle a post-divorce enforcement proceeding. The guy was owed somewhere in the neighborhood of like $5,000, which hadn't been paid in a few years and was already reduced to judgment. He reached out because he found some money she was squirreling away and he wanted the judgment enforced against it. The money was funds raised through a firehouse benefit dinner which was held for cancer treatments because she was uninsured. I declined. I had an epic client who hated his wife's guts. He was asked to pay an interim maintenance of rupees, $3,000 per month. This guy goes to the bank and gets $3,000, all in 1 rupee coins, and gives it to his wife in court. Technically, it's legal. So the wife had to sit and count all the coins in court, and then he says he wants the bag back. Technically, it's his bag. So this lady is left with 3,000 coins and no way to carry it home. This guy was an evil genius. I used to be a paralegal, but not a lawyer. I remember reading about one case that I couldn't remember the name of when I went to look for it. The parties had about $15 million in assets, and the husband had owned about 90% of the assets going into the marriage. The courts wanted to award the wife about $2 million and give the husband the rest, and the husband wanted to leave her destitute. He ended up spending all of his money to fight at every step of the way by filing frivolous motions and just generally doing whatever he could to be a jerk. After attorney fees, penalties and costs, and money wasted on schemes, the total remaining assets the parties had was about $500K. The courts awarded all of it to the wife and left him completely broke. Guy wins lottery big time. Millions. Never tells his wife. Technically, half belongs to her. Taxes already taken, so he just needs to note it in tax forms, which wife always signs without looking. Divorce. Husband offers no hassle. Generous divorce settlement, which her lawyer advises her to take. He moves to a nearby town and lives normally, gradually losing touch with everyone who knows him. Then he moves again, losing touch with everyone. That's when he starts spending the dough. This one's a bit of a story, but here goes. The guy lives on his family farm all his life. His mother lives with him, but the father had already passed away. One day, his mom says he should get a wife as he starts getting a bit older himself. He finds someone online. She has a teenage daughter already, but whatever. Things move along and they're all living together on the farm. He does the farming and decides to let her handle the books. The wife then sees how much money this guy's actually got and starts spending a lot of it. Sends the daughter to private schools, starts buying expensive things, etc., etc. But she doesn't pay the farm's bills. The land was still on mortgage. He finds out because he gets a call from the bank saying that he's past due and nothing's been paid. He ends up losing the farm. He gets into a big argument with his wife. They split up. She gets him and his mother kicked out of the house, even though it was their house to begin with. So he leaves to the city. He doesn't like it. After all, he was farming out in the country all his life. So he calls up his friend, asks if he can come back to town and stay at his place. Friend says sure. He arrives at his friend's house. The friend isn't there. Instead, he finds his ex-wife and her daughter. He snapped. He took a gun from his vehicle and shot and killed them both. I've got a few stories from my husband who's an attorney. A man had been assaulting his 5-year-old daughter and the wife found out about it, left him, and filed for custody. The vindictive SOB accused his wife of assaulting the daughter just so she wouldn't get custody either. The girl went to his wife's parents, and suddenly the husband remembers that the wife's parents also assaulted her too. Again, all this just so that the wife wouldn't get custody. The girl ended up in foster care for a whole year while the investigations went on, and the wife and her parents were cleared. The father served time and is now allowed supervised visits. Then there was a woman who was married to a man who sold guns for a living and loved hunting more than anything. She accused him of domestic violence because she knew he would no longer be allowed to own or carry guns. Next, a woman in the middle of a divorce invited her soon-to-be ex to reconnect, seduced him, and offered him alcohol, then threw him out of the house. She called the cops and reported seeing someone swerving on the road. He was arrested, taken to jail, and lost his job because of the DUI. His job involved driving. Lastly, a man told his wife that he would give up custody of their twin daughters if she agreed not to go after spousal support or ask to split any assets. She agreed and the divorce was finalized. The day the papers were signed, he went after full custody of the twins, saying that he could take better care of them because he had a big house and she only had an apartment, and he made more money and things like that. Just to leave her with as little as possible, he told his attorney. When the judge wouldn't grant him custody because of their previous arrangement, he went after one of them and permanently split up the twins. So many stories, but generally the cases that sickened me the most went like this. Wife has baby. Husband has zero interest in child and even resents the attention that the child takes away from him. Tells wife that she is 100% responsible for this child, even financially. Wife realizes that husband is a jerk parent and that makes him a jerk partner. She would actually rather be a single parent than deal with his man-baby nonsense. Divorce petition is filed. The husband is told by his lawyer that the more time he has with his kid, the less child support he'll have to pay. The husband starts going to doctor appointments, doing stuff with the child, and, being a parent. The parties are now divorced. Husband has a 50-50 timeshare and is a doting father. All wife wanted was for husband to take an interest in the child, but she had to divorce him to get it. I had this case while working as a law clerk. The husband had a fancy job and got stationed abroad, so the wife and 2 kids moved with him. He got a really high salary, all expenses paid, while the wife was a stay-at-home mom with no income of her own. The marriage ended up failing and they moved back home to Sweden, and the wife sued for alimony, which she was entitled to by law, so she would be able to take care of the kids every other week. She hadn't worked for a number of years and had a hard time getting back into the job market, no savings, etc. Suddenly, the husband, who basically hadn't had to pay any bills for several years, claimed he was also broke. He only had around $1 million or so and was forced to spend it on an apartment in one of the most expensive parts of town so he had somewhere to live.
What words or phrases do you hear someone say and immediately know you're probably not gonna like that person? Tough love often seems to be used as an excuse to be a jerk. I get it when it's like an intervention, but most times I've personally heard this is just for when people want to start crap. So I personally don't use the term tough love, but I am the doesn't sugarcoat things friend. Granted, I know how to read a room and I'm not heartless, but there are a bunch of people in this world that need a little push or to be told that they are acting a certain way that might not be for the best. I feel like tough love is probably the best phrase, but I don't know another phrase that doesn't seem negative. You're so quiet. No, I'm not quiet or shy, I just don't want to speak to you. We're all family here. In a work setting, mother freaker, you just laid off cousin Bill last week. Yeah, as soon as you start talking to your coworkers like you talk to your brother, you get written up. Can you go get the cart from the back in building C? Get crapped on, poophead. You've got legs. Instant write-up. So much for family. No offense, but just before saying the most offensive thing you've heard in your life. See, also, don't take this the wrong way, with a disaster statement to follow. That's the cousin of, I'm not racist, but proceeds to say the most racist thing you've ever heard. Can't forget stepsister of, not to be political, but you can't retort it because they made it clear that their political rant wasn't political. This family usually calls Twitter home. People don't like me because I tell it like it is. And naturally, they hate when anyone else dares to tell them how it is in kind. Very thin-skinned, these blunt folks are. My ex. I wear my heart on my sleeve. Also my ex would quietly simmer about things he secretly had an issue with for months, make snarky remarks out of nowhere, and then it would be like pulling teeth to get him to have a solid conversation about what the freak was even up with him. Turned out to be a shady mofo who would rather burn everything to the ground and start over with a whole new friend group than actually admitting to someone that he was in the wrong. I'm so bipolar. To explain why they are indecisive, or to play off poor life choices, or just to say it to sound quirky. I really hate that because I'm bipolar and I rarely tell anyone. I hate this for I'm so OCD too. Yeah, definitely. My colleagues say this all the time and it's really annoying. I actually have OCD and it's a horrible condition that limits your life so much and it gives you so much stress and anxiety. Another one that makes me roll my eyes is I'm so weird. People seem to like to use those kinds of words to make them seem special or cool. Whatever. I'd like to add in here the phrase I'm dyslexic. For people that do something by mistake or switch something around that they didn't mean to, that's not dyslexia. You just messed up. Call me when you have to proofread a tweet or text message a million times and the moment you hit send, you notice mistakes. I'm bipolar and I hate it when people use it as a badge of quirkiness. Nobody brags about climbing the walls at 3 a.m. Nobody should aspire to burning their life down. Nobody can throw away every relationship, career, education, and think it's something to be proud of. Because of these people, my own tendencies get blown off and not taken seriously. I'm so glad I found medication that works. I hate the way I used to be. Absolutely hate it. One of my best friends is bipolar. I was roommates with the guy for 3 years. Regular people simply don't know crap about how significant the ups and downs are. And they usually aren't mentally prepared when I start giving examples of the crazy crap I put up with. Some of them immediately question how I put up with him or why I didn't bail. He and I are still besties, and I love telling all those idiot normies that they simply aren't as strong for their friends as they think they are. I'm super happy that you've got a decent medication plan. My friend finally found something that works this past year, and instead of waking up thinking, I want to die, or messaging all of his Discord friends at 5 a.m. to see if anybody is still awake, he just goes to work feeling like a human, and he goes to bed early just because he wants to. But seriously, congrats on finding something that works. I've seen how it changes somebody, so I'll cheer you on too. I do want to say I take a little issue with the comment that said people are idiot normies because they wouldn't stick around for their bipolar friends. I do think people should be commended for supporting their friends in positive ways. That's always great. But I dated a girl that was bipolar and it was ruining my life. And I stuck around for 5 years. In my case, they tried medication, but they didn't like how they felt on it and went back to life without it. So I have to say there is a limit to how much people should have to quote unquote support their friends. It shouldn't come at the cost of your own happiness. I hate drama. I have never heard someone say this unsolicited and not been exhausted with their shenanigans within a day. Those of us who really hate drama feel no need to announce it. We just quietly try to bail out of situations without getting noticed and drug back into it against our will. Someone who describes themselves as an alpha male tells impulsive stories about how tough he is and how many women he's banged. Yeah, me and you are gonna fall out real soon, buddy. And I'm not just saying this because he's an ex, loser ex-BF said this all the time. Then later when I broke it off and ignored him, his messages were things along the lines of, you think you're an alpha female? But you're not even close. You can't compete with me and what I bring. Ugh, I hated that guy so much. I didn't believe it until I had a roommate call himself one. And he was serious about it. Considered himself a global nomad, does nothing but look at stocks and crypto every day, only wore tank tops, had a man bun, believed himself to be a natural leader and kept trying to force himself as the leader of the house. Eventually he got into a fight with my roommate because the alpha kept insulting his parents. When I told them to fight, my roommate pushed him. The alpha called the cops because he touched me first. The cops laughed in his face. But it wasn't fun being questioned by the cops at 10 p.m. Dude, can I just say that if a guy constantly talks about how much he hooked up with chicks, they more than likely are not doing that. I used to work with some dudes that were like this, and all of these stories happened when there were no witnesses, and if they ever went out with coworkers, they were often quiet and kept to themselves. Also, the hookup situations always seem like something you could find on Orange and Black YouTube. Where's my hug? Immediately, no. As an empath, that or I'm an old soul. I like people who are spiritual, but these particular people seem to be less spiritual and more full of themselves most of the time. Good vibes only. And I'm such an empath. Okay, I've totally met people that say I'm an old soul or that they like good vibes only. I have never in my life met somebody that has considered themselves an empath. Is that really a thing? Why didn't they just take eagles to Mordor? I feel like this one doesn't get used much outside of nerd circles. Oh, I'm totally compelled to do this totally normal activity because my OCD, ADHD, bipolar is kicking in. This is absolutely not how ADHD works. Everyone seems to have it. It's annoying. I hate that I found out that I have ADHD in a time where everyone thinks that they have ADHD. It is a huge light bulb moment for me. Like, oh crap, this is why my life has always been so hard for me. And I felt like such an outsider / weirdo. But now it's trendy to say that you have ADHD, even though when you really have it, it just sucks. I do find it funny when people think that they have ADHD and they use it as an excuse. When I hear somebody say that, I usually ask, were you diagnosed? And if they say no, I just tell them, you're probably just bad with time management. You'd be surprised how much people could get done if they actually scheduled things out. Those type of people that say, I got this shirt for X amount and these shoes for Y amount. You pay way more than normal people for stuff. That's not something to brag about. Also, do you really have no innate worth that you have to toss around price tags to attract people? To be honest, I throw around amounts sometimes, but in the opposite. Usually to boast about how cheap something was. When someone compliments my jacket, oh my god, it was on clearance for 20 bucks, thanks. Both sides of this coin can be really annoying, but it's harmless if you just do it from time to time. Women who say, I only have guy friends, which is usually followed by something like, women always bring drama, women are usually jerks, women can't handle how real I am, women are always jealous of me. Yeah, it's great to have guy friends, but the problem is when women who view other women as the enemy. Oh my god, I hate this one too. Girl, when you're having problems with all the other women, you're the problem. I have to say 100% yes to this. We've done a red flag video here on the Genius channel before, and I don't think this was brought up, but when women don't have female friends and say the reasoning are some of the above, it's definitely a sign of trouble from my experience. But to be fair, there were a few comments that countered against this idea, and they went like this. I feel like where I was raised in the 80s and 90s, it was common practice to pit girls against girls. I grew up with one other girl as a friend, and she was a huge tomboy like myself. All my other friends were dudes. Okay, fine. They were good people. But as an almost 40-year-old woman, I love and cherish my women friends, and have almost no close male friends anymore. I feel like I was robbed of female friendship as a child due to my parents, and other adults making me think I hated other girls from the get-go. I just want to add, everyone who says that dudes don't like drama are full of crap. Men love drama. This, if they say most or all of their friends are guys because they grew up with brothers and are more comfortable around guys, or that they can't find any girlfriends that want to do the same activities as them, it's totally understandable. But to say women are too much drama or jealous or can't handle them is just annoying. Sincerely, I'm a girl that has a bunch of guy friends, which is fine, but I like to do typical male activities. But I also wish I had more women friends because sometimes guys just don't get it. And sometimes I just want a girls' night. Just to back up the comment of men liking drama, it's 100% true. I used to work at an old auto factory, and gossip spread faster than COVID in that place. The factory was like 80% dudes. My truth. As the way my philosophy professor put it when a girl asked, I'm just speaking my truth. I could believe the moon is made of blue cheese and say that's my truth, but that doesn't make it true. Get over yourself. I think I would have loved this professor. Reminds me of one of my favorite quotes that I believe comes from Ricky Gervais, and it said something along the lines of, just because you're offended doesn't make you right. And I feel like that statement is becoming truer and truer by the day. If you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. Yeah, this is basically code for saying you're a horrible person. When they start bragging about themselves when you first meet them. You know what your problem is, don't you? Oh, that's such typical star sign behavior. Every horoscope is a Rorschach test. People will see whatever they want to see. I can read every horoscope and find something that applies to me all the time. Horoscopes are stupid. That's such an Aries thing to say. Engagement, initiative, any kind of group speak that sounds like the corporate marketing manager plagiarized. I can't comment on corporate speak, but people that use big words just to sound more intelligent, we get it, Brad. You can read a dictionary. I'm an influencer and I have X amount of followers. I will say this statement is worse when they're just starting out. Yeah, I just started, but I know what it takes to become famous, so in a few months, these numbers are gonna be insane. Just watch. My ex was a narcissist. I didn't hear this nearly as often until the last year or so. Now suddenly everyone has an ex that's a narcissist. I work in the behavioral health field, and this one drives me crazy. No, just because you both wanted different things in life doesn't make him selfish enough to be labeled with an actual personality disorder. Oh my God. Just say you weren't compatible and move on with your life. No offense to those who actually genuinely dated a narcissist. People can just be genuinely sucky, awful, self-absorbed, and even abusive, but still not be a narcissist. People don't have to have a personality disorder to suck. That last sentence is vastly underrated. Anyone older who says, back in my day, you young people don't know what hard work is. Anything like that, as if they couldn't buy a house on minimum wage and go to college without crippling debt. I personally graduated debt-free thanks to scholarships, but the older generation seems to not understand the wage/cost disparity between their generation and the younger generations. As I'm older now, I understand that everyone will end up saying, back in my day, or the younger generation, because it's the best way to describe something in comparison. It isn't always negative, and a lot of statements are truthful, such as, back in my day, people didn't come out as gay in high school because they feared what people might think or say. Or, the younger generation will never understand the amount of effort that went into a research paper before the internet. Yes, but you know others have it worse. Every time you have an issue, denying the pain of someone isn't helping them at all. Yes, others have it worse. But at day D, hour H, I want to talk about my feelings and feel heard and seen. I want solutions, or I want help, or I want someone to complain about said subject or sensitive topic for me. It's not being selfish, it's just de-stressing. And if you can't find a solution, at least keep the bad vibes away. I had this new coworker who I didn't have to work with, but could have made both of our jobs easier. He didn't even need to say anything. At the first morning meeting, he had a Daily Wire coffee mug that said, "This cup is filled with liberal tears." Yeah, no thanks, dude. I don't need your help with anything. Anything involving crystal healing, essential oils doing more than just smelling nice, or projecting one's dreams into reality. I forget the exact term for the third thing at this moment. If any one of these things comes up in conversation and you're being serious about it, I automatically don't trust you completely. If multiple are a part of your personality, I don't trust you at all. Is the third thing speaking stuff into existence? Is that what they meant? Anyone that badmouths others. My initial thought immediately jumps to, what are you gonna say about me when I'm not around? Everything happens for a reason. Nah, that's some bullcrap platitude that you tell yourself because thinking the world operates on logic and reason is a coping mechanism for avoiding the reality that the world is unfair, unpredictable, and bad things happen to good people all the time. People who will insert, well, if Trump was still in office, in every single conversation despite having nothing to do with politics. Oh, I just thought of another one. People who say, well, just wait until some blue-haired person comes by and complains about what we're doing, when they are trying to defend something that they do or are into. Most of the time, it's projection, and it doesn't even make sense with the particular subject matter. Men are logical and analytical, and women are emotional. That's one of the most inaccurate statements I keep hearing every time I listen to a certain type of people on certain videos or podcasts. Anyone using words like literally, toxic, or problematic in every other sentence, it's like these words have lost all meaning. Regardless, or it is what it is. Guilty of it is what it is. I'm not saying I don't care. To be fair, sometimes I don't care. But more that you need to keep perspective in what you have control over in your life and what you don't. I have a few coworkers that are habitual complainers. to the point that I believe it may just be their natural state. Why the freak are you complaining to me because Taco Bell was out of Baja Blast 8 hours ago, before you came to work and now your day's ruined? They didn't have it. Get something else. It is what it is. It boggles my mind people can function in their day-to-day life by personalizing every externality and bringing themselves to near cathartic rage about them. Any talk of Biden crime family, Hunter laptop, CRT, they put litter boxes in schools for kids that identify as cats, them teachers are indoctrinating kids, mentions of Newsmax, OAN, or Tucker freaking Carlson, or blaming Democrats for every poor choice they made in life. I'm not racist, but went on a date with a random woman from Bumble, and no more than 5 minutes into the convo, she started a sentence with this, then spewed something incredibly racist. There is no way to end that sentence and not have it be awful. Paid the bills for the drinks and apps that hadn't even arrived yet and made a beeline to the door to nope my way out of there. If she bleeds, she breeds. Don't forget, oh look, now you're breedable too. Well, the Bible says, followed by some incredibly arrogant thoughts. Anyone who says, I have haters, or any variant of that. Anything derogatory regarding or referencing a group you're not a part of tells me all I need to know about what you think of yourself and others. Work hard, play hard. As a straight, white, cisgender person, ma'am, this is a Wendy's? Thoughts and prayers. Tells me they put on an empathic face while doing absolutely nothing to help, regardless of their ability to do so. Virtue signaling at its finest. Anything MAGA, using the term woke to describe people they don't like, and preaching/missioning about any religion, and I'm out. I'm sure you're a fine person, but I only have 20 to 30 years of my life. I don't want to spend it conversing with idiots and self-righteous voices that believe in that. I'm not sure what happened here, but there was a huge pocket of things that were intertwinable and relatable all in that little section. The one thing I will say though is if woke is part of your everyday vocabulary, yeah, my brain is probably gonna turn off when talking to you. You'd be prettier if you just smiled. Relax, bro, it's just a joke. After saying something incredibly inappropriate or offensive. Specifically, anyone who refers to COVID as the Rona. I hate you. I'm a real patriot. Most people who use this phrase never served their country in any capacity to make it better. That means not necessarily military, but other jobs that help the country as well. And they think for some reason because they are extremely right-leaning, probably love the orange one and have lots of guns, it makes them a patriot. I served in the military, then when I got out, I tried to keep jobs that help my community/country in some way. And I feel like a true patriot is not a person looking for violence or to hate others, but a person who wants us to all succeed, even people who are immigrants that may not be an official citizen yet. And for us all to work together as a country to improve the lives of everyone that lives here. To me, that's a true patriot. I got one that I didn't see on the list. When gamers say, people nowadays would never survive in the old Call of Duty lobbies. People that say this are usually some of the softest people in the world. Just look at any big YouTuber or Twitch streamer that plays COD religiously.
People who quit a job in the heat of the moment, what chaos did you leave them to handle? I didn't get a bonus because they felt the overtime I did paid me more than the bonus they gave to everyone else. I didn't know what to say after that, so after a few hours, I offered to get coffee for everyone. I left and never came back or contacted them again. I keep thinking that I should go back with coffee now that I've been gone for 10 years and just act normal. When I was a programmer at an insurance company, one of the longtime programmers had been with the company for nearly 20 years. This guy originally wrote most of the financial system himself, from scratch, and had maintained it with the help of a couple other people. Every month, he did the month-end processing, and every quarter, he did the quarter-end processing. Every year-end, yep, it was him. There was a change in management a couple of times, and he kept getting treated worse and worse. He was being treated unfairly, asked to do unreasonably more work than he was already doing, getting thrown under the bus, that kind of thing. He finally had enough, and one morning he came in, walked to the manager's office and quit, then walked out the door. In the aftermath, it took a team of 4 other people months and months to get things back together and to a point where things were serviceable. I got stabbed in the shoulder while working as a bookmaker, or betting shop manager. I was the only key holder, and while the paramedics were tending to me, the area manager was on the phone asking me to open the store the next day. I closed shop for the day, came back once I got out of the hospital, put my keys in the safe, and left my notice on the desk. The store didn't open for 3 days while they sorted a field manager. I worked for a landscape company doing new installs. Our owner was cheap with a bad habit of constantly biting off more than he could chew. One year, he asked if we wanted any part of a school project in a city we didn't live in, over 2 hours away, and we said no. He said that was fine and would just bid on one school for his crew who lived in that area. Instead, he bid on multiple schools and got 3 of them. Obviously, none of us are happy about this, and he claimed that he'd put us up in hotels so we wouldn't have to commute. He never did. The work itself sucked, way more than a crew our size could handle, and the owner's brother did absolutely nothing. He was supposed to be the project manager / supervisor, but literally all he did was play Clash of Clans on his phone and yell at people about not being fast enough. After a few days, I was done. I'd grown sick of the job anyway, but this project really sealed the deal. Having to commute 4+ hours a day and then physically destroy myself was taking a toll fast. I woke up Friday morning, called the owner, told him I quit and to stop taking more work than he can manage. He blew up, but I just hung up the phone and went back to sleep. 2 weeks later, I get a call from him. He's begging me to come back because after I quit, 2 other guys did too. The project is now woefully behind schedule and he's going to get fined if things don't pick up and get finished. I told him he should have thought of that before he bit off more than he could chew and expected a small crew to do it all in a short time frame. He got quiet and then asked if a 50-cent raise would get me back. No, that was the last time I ever heard from him, and I can't find his company website anymore. I was an 18-year-old assistant manager at a big pizza franchise. I'd been working open to close for 2 weeks straight because the new GM went on vacation right after taking over the store. When she got back from her vacation, she only worked a half day. I opened and still closed. Then she changed the schedule and took 2 days off. This was the last straw on top of a ton of other crap piled over a year. Multiple new GMs, crappy district manager, awful store politics. I was alone during an unusually large lunch rush and was just done with everyone's crap. I had a make line full of orders, phones ringing, oven full of pizza, orders to be picked up, and a massive bunch of dough sitting on the prep table. I said screw it. I shut the oven off, walked out, and locked the door. Didn't call anyone to let them know. It would be hours before the evening driver would roll in. No prep for the day, no dough for the day except for the blob I'm sure would become a massive mess after rising for hours. A double-deck oven with both belts full of pies wasted and what was probably shaping to be a $1,200 lunch out the window. I hope she was well rested after her time off. Shoppers Drug Mart. I had simply asked for better hours after working ridiculous late night hours for over a year. Instead, they hired a new guy and gave him the exact hours I asked for and then had me train him. So when training wasn't going very well because the new guy was super slow, they blamed me for it. Now, I had a good standing with everyone at this store, but I didn't need shoppers, and I let a lot of crap slide every day. So again, when I asked for vacation that I deserved because I was never sick and punctual as heck, I was denied it. And the next day, the manager had 4 weeks of vacation set. So to make it up to me, they offered me all these insane overtime shifts for the next 3 weeks. So I waited for the frozen deliveries to arrive that same day. The boss was packing up to go home, and when he said goodnight to me, I said, "But who's gonna do this frozen delivery?" He laughed and said, "You are." So I replied, "Nope." And he became super cross, so I started laughing. "What are you laughing about?" he says. So I said, "Screw you, I quit." Now there was no one to finish the night shift. He immediately asks for the uniform. I said, "No, screw you, I quit." I had never done that before or since. Uniform went in the trash. I always worked the close shift at a fast food joint. My managers loved to hand out citations for any little thing. The policy was 3 strikes and you're out. I had 2 strikes and was told to clean up the entire front end and bathroom in an hour or risk getting a 3rd strike. To put things in perspective, I had to close the register, count the money, clean up the front end, restock everything, sweep and mop the floors, and clean the entire bathroom, including the toilets, for basically $8.05. I walked into the bathroom just to see what to expect. It looked like someone had finished projectile pooping all over the toilet and then decided to pee next to the sink. I knew I wouldn't be able to do everything in an hour, and that I would get fired regardless. So I took my uniform off and walked home shirtless. I worked as an engineer at the mill, and was responsible for operation and process adjustment of certain pieces of equipment. I was able to make it work better than specified results, but my managers required more production, less power, etc. So at this point, the machines reached its capacity, and further pushing it was risky and a huge amount of investment was needed. I was told by the higher-ups that, "You didn't even try to do it, only said some lame excuses." I was done with this and called to the manufacturer of this equipment. Long story short, instead of instructions and advice, they sent me a job offer for local service rep. After I quit the mill, my ex-colleagues tried to push the machine above the limits and successfully broke it and stopped the production for a couple of weeks. I worked as a small engine repair tech for a larger company. I'm also in the National Guard. I had gotten hurt and needed physical therapy, and 1 or 2 days a month I would have to miss because of an extended drill weekend. Well, my boss didn't like that, and she decided that she would punish me by making me stay later than everyone else. She was punishing me for going to physical therapy for a workplace injury and for being a soldier. Now, you may be thinking, having to stay late to keep up on your work doesn't sound like that much of a punishment. Normally, you would be right, but trust me, she was doing a lot more to make sure it was a punishment. Well, one day after being told I was not given approval for the 1 day of vacation I had asked for 3 months in advance to go see the eclipse and generally being treated like a slave, I was like, why am I doing this to myself? And clocked out at the end of my shift. That next Monday after drill weekend, I showed up, packed up all my tools and took off. My boss started freaking out when she saw what I was doing. I left and found out that me leaving cost her over $100,000 because she had to ship my workload to another state to get another shop to work on them. That meant she needed to pay to ship them and then pay to ship them back. And since her shop didn't do any of the actual work, she never saw any money for any of the repairs. It was like 80 riding lawnmowers. I had a job as a fairly niche field service engineer in IT. Started off covering my local area, which was fine. Maybe an hour traveling time to my most remote site tops. Then they lost an engineer in my adjacent territory, and I had to cover that too. This put my travel time up to about 2.5 hours each way. That wasn't great, but it was temporary, allegedly. Then they lost another engineer, and guess what? I had to cover that area too. That meant I was having to do up to 4 hours driving each way just to get to a site. And then they expected me to put in a full 8-hour day. I mentioned this to my manager and pointed out that if I was pulling multi-day jobs at a site 4 hours away, it would be far better for them to put me up in a hotel. But they said, nah, as it was unusual for me to do multi-day installs. Anyway, a month or so later, I was expected to put in a complete new system at a site, spec'd up to 4 full days to do it. High-profile client, and I basically told my manager I needed a hotel. They pushed back. It's only 4 days, you'll be fine. Just charge them the travel time as worked hours. Which is fine, but I was salaried, and they were the ones invoicing the client, so no overtime for me. Anyway, on the second day, I arrived at nearly lunchtime after a massive accident on the motorway held me up for 4 hours, and was greeted by the client chewing me out. I thought, screw this, packed my tools, left the site with their old system ripped out, and a pile of unopened boxes of new kit, switched off my mobile and drove to the head office. I parked close enough to the main entrance that the car operated the automatic doors, went into reception and told the receptionist, very politely, it wasn't her fault, that I quit. All my gear was in the car and here are my keys, phone, and pass. Then walked out and got a cab home. I found out from a friend that they lost that client, which was one of their main ones, even after my manager basically spent the rest of the week installing the kit on his own without any documentation, since I'd written the spec and accidentally kept it. I spent some time working at a gas station where my supervisor would take about 20 smoke breaks a day while demanding that the rest of us work harder. After several days of this and my boss not doing anything about it, I quit in the middle of a pizza order rush. Oh boy, let me tell you about my last day of Walmart. It's Monday morning, my day off, and I was pulling out of my doctor's office after getting blood work done when I receive a call from my manager. Let's just call her Demon Queen. Demon Queen asks me to come into work because of 2 call-offs. Thinking that I didn't have anything else planned and could use the overtime, I agreed. I informed her over the phone it would take me an hour to get home, dress, and drive to work. All I heard from her was an annoyed, "Fine, just get here." 1 hour later, I arrived at work. Just as I was getting to the deli where I work, my manager, who was behind the counter by herself, starts yelling at me for being late, in front of not 1, not 2, but a line of customers. I attempt to remind her of our conversation, but she cuts me off, tosses her apron, and storms out of the deli. I'm forced to shrug it off, apologize to the customers, and get to work. Later, I have a customer walk to the deli and ask about our rotisserie chicken, something not uncommon. I explain it'll be over an hour before they're ready, and suggest driving 5 minutes north to the other Walmart. He nods, thanks me, and walks away towards the front. I thought nothing of it, and continued to cook popcorn chicken. 5 minutes later, the same customer comes back with none other than the Demon Queen herself, who's asking me about the rotisserie chicken. I once again attempt to explain how long the chicken has left to cook and the suggestion I made. No sooner am I finished speaking than she berates me for being lazy and telling a customer to go elsewhere. I ask what else is there I could do, as I couldn't make the oven cook faster. Her next words stick to this day. "I want you to do your job or you can kiss it goodbye." A moment of pause from everyone. Zoe and May have been listening in the entire time, as well as the customers they were helping. I ponder, then smile. Okay. I apologize to Zoe and May, wish them the best of luck, and walk out of the deli towards my manager. I stop in front of her, take off my apron, kiss it, say goodbye, and walk out of the store. I still have my name badge and hat to this day. I worked 25 years for a large company in the sales division. I was making 6 figures and had earned my role as VP of the West Coast. My plan was to stick around to retirement, but then we got a new president, and the new president was a jerk to everyone. I saw one sales guy walk up all excited and offer a handshake to meet him. The president didn't shake the extended hand, and instead said, "I can't believe you came here without polishing your shoes." The president gave a directive for me to stop hiring people with business or sales experience and to just start hiring attractive men and women, because in his words, "Their good looks will sell product better than the educated words of a veteran salesperson. Plus, they're young and work cheaper." I went along with this request and made 2 such hires. Then the next request came along. "Tell me, who is the worst member of your team right now?" I explained that my team was number 1 in the company and that we're all doing well. But the weakest one would have to be one 8-year employee who had had a bad year last year. He was making less frequent calls and the quality of calls was dropping. I had to place him on PIP to improve in 3 months. And he did. He busted his butt, worked long hours and weekends, and moved into the number 1 spot on my team. At the end of the 3 months, the president calls me to discuss the PIP. I explain the great progress and that I want to release him from the PIP because he's on track now. The reply was, "Well, there's probably other things wrong with him anyway, so terminate him and document it. Make sure to hire a young, attractive person as a replacement." I quit on the spot with 0 days notice, unusual for a white-collar job, and told him to do his own dirty work. Now I work as a high school teacher. I worked in shipping and receiving for a health food store. Over the past 5 days, everyone else had quit, including supervisors and department heads. I was working a frozen shipment, my regular job. Dairy came in and cheese came in, a little bit over $130,000. Huge fancy cheese and whole wheels, a large generally organic dairy shipment. I refused to sign anything. GM demanded I sign and put it away. Signing was already out of my pay grade. Those numbers made it way out of my pay grade. He then demanded I put it all away. It would have taken the rest of the shift for my own work. I just quit. Screw it. I heard that he signed it and it all went to waste. He ended up getting fired. I've only done this once in my life, but it was a really crazy situation. My first professional job was an event planner for a small business, like 3 people. I was 24 and I worked there for a year. After about 5 months, my boss became extremely abusive. She would make snide little remarks about my terrible skills or time management or organizing. She stopped talking to me and would basically act like I wasn't there unless it was to criticize me for something. One day, she asked me if I implemented a new filing system she had learned from the bank she used to work at. I replied no, as she hadn't yet shown me how to do so. She said, with a stack of papers in her hand, "Well, I guess giving you these would just be useless then." Another example is that she would find little ways in which I was being pert or snide in some way, usually something completely BS, and would make me sign forms saying we had meetings about my behavior and listed all the things we would do to change it and help me grow. Like I worked for a big corporation or something with an HR department, not a private office with literally one boss. If I argued why I wasn't doing so, she made me sign something saying I was refusing training. I literally have no idea who those papers were for. Things like that. It made me so paranoid and unhappy, I spent many lunches crying in my car, and many nights completely stressed out after work. I couldn't understand what had changed, and felt so stupid and helpless. My coworker had just left, so it was just the two of us, and I gave my 2 weeks because the thought of being alone in an office with her was unbearable. As soon as I left her office, she called her mom to complain about me ditching her and talked about how happy she would be with me gone, all while I was about 10 feet away in another room with the doors open. I lost it, got up from my desk and grabbed my purse, went to her office and told her I was leaving for good, right this minute. I was shaking and terrified, and she was furious. She told me, "Good luck finding another job in this town. I know everybody." Spoiler alert, I did. The kicker? What I didn't know at the time was that my coworker had been feeding her BS the whole time. When it started to affect how I was being treated and I would complain or talk about it, guess who also told my boss all of that? Yup, with many embellishments of course. I had zero experience with people like that and overlooked many clues, like how she would stay after work a lot to finish her assignments, when in reality she was staying to tattle on me. I was just so new to the real world and naive. I found all of this out a few months later from one of her friends I ran into who she had also screwed over in some way. It made me stronger, and after I left, my boss had to deal with scrambling to find people to do all of her events, and I'm sure it was hell. I felt happy about that at first, but now that I'm 10 years older, I can see things differently. She definitely could have handled it better, but it was her first boss job too, and she maybe had some things to learn herself. I quit from a gaming site I used to write for. This all happened in the span of 2 months. The new owner made us writers lose all credibility by writing unedited articles on his own and posting them freely, and they were the most widely ridiculous and racist pieces I'd ever read. In one of them, he said women only bought the Wii because they used the Wii mode as a vibrator. It just made the rest of us look bad. He fired my friend simply because he didn't like him. He tried to claim my friend kept our review copy of Skyward Sword. There was more stuff that he did that I can't remember. My father died in December of that year. I informed everyone. I had also lost internet access for a while because my provider was switching the way their routers and stuff connected. I had too much going on at the time to deal with that. When I connected to the McDonald's Wi-Fi one day, I read a barrage of emails from the new owner, all amounting to, "Where are you?" and "Why aren't you writing anything?" I emailed him and CC'd everyone on the writing staff and told him he could go screw himself. 90% of the writing staff followed. 5 writers quit that day, and people took notice. The site never recovered, and today it only exists as a landing page and hub for one podcast that just refuses to die. After that, the owner took to stalking the guy who hired most of his writing staff, online harassment, and most recently, he hacked the previous owner's email and stole his Destiny 2 review code. He's still out there being a jerk, but I only hear about it since I have him blocked on all social media.
The writers did what? I loved the show until this character showed up. That new guy that replaced Eric in that 70s show. They should have just ended the show when Eric went off to Africa. I just recently realized how much that guy looks like Seth Meyers. Turns out he's his little brother. April and Gilmore Girls. Such a bad storyline in my opinion, and was just a bad way to delay Lorelai and Luke. The most ridiculously lazy way the writers could create a new conflict for happy Luke and Lorelai. Okay, so they're happy now, but we want another season. What do we do? I don't know, just give him a kid out of nowhere. That'll make him forget he loves Lorelai or something. The baby in any show except for dinosaurs. Okay, but what about Maggie Simpson and her little starfish winter coat? Okay, this is definitely another exception to the rule I just made up. Debbie in Shameless US. I think she tricked some guy, which is SA by the way, and then got pregnant and was just so deeply annoying, and I was enjoying it until that point. Well, practically everyone in Shameless once the writers decided that there would be no character improvement or always a new contrived obstacle. There were some moments of growth with Lip, Debbie, and Fiona, but at the end of the season they backslid for some reason. I'll buy it once or twice, but every single time is absurd. Poochie. Thank God he died on the way back to his home planet. Poe. His antics made the Teletubbies completely infuriating. That episode where he lost the frickin' apples really made me lose all respect for him. Excuse me, Poe is a girl. I bet you feel like an idiot now. Euron Greyjoy. The show was already sinking, and the writing in the final seasons was horrendous, but Euron's character was a huge nail in the coffin. Which sucks, because book readers will know how much of a bad motherfricker Book Euron is, and the actor who played him has said he was a fan of the book, so there was just so much wasted potential there. Don't forget the sand snakes. Ashton Kutcher absolutely destroyed 2.5 Men, although I think that was the writer's fault more than his acting ability. He just did not fit in that role at all, plus the role made no sense. Unpopular opinion, I don't think you could destroy 2.5 Men, for the same reason I don't think you can destroy a broken up pile of scrap metal covered in urine. That show was frickin' abhorrently dull, humorless, and basic from start to finish. I don't know why it mattered so much to some people that the toilet paper they called a script changed hands from one actor to another. Here are some people with opinions on how you can tarnish a turd, though. To be honest, Charlie Sheen blew a hole in that show that could never be fixed. No amount of screenwriting could explain why someone's rich brother dies and another rich person shows up and buys the house and keeps a house guest and a maid that they don't know? Piper from Orange is the New Black. After the first season, she was easily the worst character in the entire show. June in the later seasons of The Handmaid's Tale. Just leave already. Once they left the source material, it all went off the rails. The first season was so good, and it could have just been an incredible miniseries, but people just don't know when to stop. I thought it was about women seizing power against the patriarchy, but it wasn't that at all. They let the men take over the fight. That stupid ending of, "you should write a book," was intensely disappointing. It winded up being about what June wanted, not women fighting oppression. Owen on Greys. A season or two of him, and the way Sandra Oh's character went from independent bad B-word to whiny lovesick puppy caused me to stop watching. And he's still there, and he's still annoying. A couple of times they came close to killing him off or sending him away, but every single time they frickin' keep him. That main lady in The Blacklist. I can't even remember her name, but damn she was annoying. I started watching because I'd seen clips of Spader giving some dynamite performances, but it's like he was talent vampiring that actress. Anthony Mackie as Kovacs in Season 2 of Altered Carbon. Kinnaman did such a great job in Season 1 that Mackie just felt wrong in Season 2. I also didn't like Will Yun Lee as Kovacs Prime in flashbacks in Season 1. Am I just racist? 100% agreed. Kinnaman made the character and anyone replacing him just didn't work. He's a different caliber of an actor compared to the others. Dill. Literally no reason for a drooly baby that couldn't do anything and made the other babies irritated for no reason. The scene in the Rugrats movie where Tommy cried alone in the closet? Devastating. I actually blocked that out of my memory. I have a lot of core memories of the first couple of seasons of the show before the movie and Nickelodeon producing new episodes. Once Tommy's brother was introduced, I really was too old to be watching it anyway, but I also had no idea what the heck was going on in any given episode. I know I'm sounding like a complaining boomer, but it just looked too different, everyone sounded too different, and the roughness and gross-up humor was sanded down, and it just felt like a completely different show. It's especially weird watching the show after they do the second movie and change up the format again, which I think ended up with Angelica going to preschool and some episodes taking place in a coffee shop Chucky's dad owned. And then of course there's All Grown Up, which is like a whole other beast. It's really weird to think that there's actually more episodes of Rugrats after Dill than from before. And for a lot of people, that's the Rugrats they remember. Kind of like all the people that started watching The Simpsons in the 2000s or, God forbid, the 2010s. Mary Winchester. She should have stayed dead. Elizabeth, Raymond Reddington's daughter on Blacklist. I suspect I'm not the only one finding her insufferable, since the series didn't bother to finish her story's arc. They simply omitted her, to everyone's ultimate relief. The actress who played Elizabeth Keene is god-awful, and I don't understand why or how they gave her the lead opposite a capable legend like Spader. She and her wigs ruined every moment, and the character, despite being an FBI agent and supposedly a capable con artist thanks to her upbringing, was bafflingly stupid in so many situations. 2 words, my friends. Scrappy-Doo. The daughter in Lucifer. Time travel stories are stupid. Or maybe some of them are okay, but this particular one was stupid. Oh boy, how do I pronounce this one and not get us struck? Listen, I love It's Creek. I really do. Great show. But Roland makes me want to put a crowbar through my TV. And I understand that's the point. I get he's the infuriating comic foil, but I just don't care. The show would be infinitely better without him. And I mean no disrespect to Chris Elliott, fantastic actor that he is. Though a large number of his characters are this same vein of annoying crap bag. It just doesn't work for me, personally, at all. And I need a version of the show edited to exclude him from it entirely. Callaloo. Trash. Chachi. Happy Days. Cousin Oliver. So many of those classic family sitcoms seemed to panic when the kids grew up after a few seasons. They would try to shoehorn in a cute 5-year-old because apparently they thought you always had to have a little kid saying clever and adorable things. I remember Family Ties had the mum get pregnant and have a baby, and the kid was 5 years old the next week. Connor Angel. Vincent Kartheiser is a fantastic actor, but that character sucked big old donkey member. Kazoo on the Flintstones. Just why? Eric Matthews turning from wise and cool older brother to complete dum-dum. I love the show Modern Family. I really hate Manny and found myself always annoyed at episodes that centered around him and his cringiness and whining. I loved Manny when the show started. However, as he got older, he just felt really creepy and weird. I didn't mind Manny, but Little Joe and Haley near the end ruined it. Haley had just started getting some really good character development, and her and the guy from Workaholics were perfect. Then they just reverted her back to like season 1 when she was a kid. Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank. Haven't watched it since I saw him on CNN. He's a despicable, hateful know-it-all. Ivar on Vikings. And then Floki became extremely unsufferable when he made it to Iceland. The show ended once Ragnar died, in my opinion. Honestly, when Travis Fimmel was gone, it went downhill fast. I get that it was coming, I know that that's how Ragnar was said to have died in the saga, but he was the show, and when Ragnar died, none of his sons or the other characters could carry it. The first 3 seasons kicked butt, though. Andy Bernard on The Office made the last 2 seasons unbearable. And it was especially annoying that the showrunners kept trying to make him one of the main characters. If they'd have kept him in the background like Kevin or Meredith or Creed and only given him a few lines every now and then, he wouldn't have been so annoying, but they kept making entire episodes all about him. The entire Moon family in Frasier. They were awful and dragged the whole show down. They were worth it purely for the one scene where Frasier bursts into the room shouting about Daphne's brother sleeping in his bed, au naturel. Ha! Oh boy, this is true. The worst part of the show. I remember audibly groaning when Daphne's brother returned for her second wedding. Speaking of awful British characters, though, I'm very surprised that Nellie from The Office hasn't come up yet. I don't hate her the way some others do, but boy are the ones who feel that way about her passionate and vocal. We'll see. Baby Bop in Barney the Dinosaur. Shows have one chance to make a first impression, and the one time I gave the show a chance, Baby Bop appeared out of nowhere, steals some art project from some kids out of their hands, and disappears with it because she just loves blankets. And I never gave Barney a second chance. Fish Mooney from Gotham. Jada was so bad I stopped watching it live, and when I binged it this year, I had to skip her scenes. Such a cringy performance. The writers must have been super proud of her as their original character because there was no reason to keep her around after she stopped being the crime boss. The story where she's on the organ harvesting island is probably the dumbest storyline I've ever seen in a show. And that show was pretty good aside from her awful acting. At least it had potential. Victor Zsasz was great and needed more inclusion. Not having Poison Ivy age so quickly was horrible too. Ivy is a good character, but that actress and storyline ruined her. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to Am I the Genius? Nancy Botwin. Not only did it ruin Weeds, We've got something in my friend group called the Botwin effect. That's when you hate a character so much on one show that when the same actor portrays a completely different character on a different show, you impulsively hate that other show's character. I never liked Amy Gardner from the first scene because of the Botwin effect, for example. Can't remember the character's name, but Ashton Kutcher's character on 2.5 Men. The lightning guy in Demon Slayer. I'm having to lower my volume every 10 seconds because he's always screeching and crying, and it's so much louder than anything else in the show. I came here to say this, then realized someone almost definitely already did. I'm just surprised I had to go down this far to find this answer. It's a popular show and Zenitsu is frickin' awful. They could have made his anxious screaming less loud. You can edit audio so it's not as loud, but you'd still get that he was screaming. Poof from Fairly Odd Parents. Ted Mosby, honestly, I liked How I Met Your Mother early on, but over time he just drained the fun out of it for me. Every season felt like he'd learn something and then hit reset and make the same messy choices while everyone else had to orbit around his drama. It made rewatches rough because you start noticing how often the show bends to prove he's right instead of just letting him grow. When the main character becomes the biggest roadblock, it's hard to stay invested. I have a weird answer, but Mork on Happy Days. Once they started going with an alien theme on a show that was supposed to be about family life in the 50s, it was obvious they were about to jump the shark, literally. However, Mork and Mindy was my absolute favorite show when I was a kid. Although I don't really remember watching it, my mum told me that I always wanted to dress like Mork. I can't watch any of the Star Trek Next Generation episodes with Dr. Pulaski. She's cold, intolerant, and a total know-it-all. I can't stand her attitude and blatant disrespect towards Data, even after she reluctantly decides he's worth something. In contrast, Dr. Crusher is kind yet insistent, with a deep curiosity. She's part of the crew and works with others' strengths instead of acting better than them. At one point, it's said that Pulaski's overbearing personality is the same as Captain Picard's, and that's why they don't get along. But I don't think anyone really gets along with her. I agree, she does get better as the season goes on. Have you seen the original series episodes she was in? She was great in those. Carrie Bradshaw in S and the City, and Just Like That as well. I thought her character was satire, but the ending convinced me they were actually glorifying the character the whole time. She's just awful on so many levels. Ted on How I Met Your Mother. I wanted to like him, but the constant self-pity and romantic grandstanding started making every episode feel like a lecture about his damn feelings. Remember, the whole plot is him retelling his dating life to his kids, which is super weird, but that's a whole other can of worms. It does make sense that he's over-explaining his feelings. That said, he comes across that insufferable in his own version of events. I can't imagine what it would have been actually like dealing with this person. Felicity and Team Flash in Flash. Yes, her character was a cute side character for tech support in the first 2 seasons, but the moment they decided to make her a love interest, she just became unbearable, and to fix that, they gave her more computer tech abilities, which became even more unrealistic. She was able to divert nukes, but nobody in the US military was able to do it? Lame, but okay. When they made that Hemsworth guy into The Witcher, the entire show felt like wasted potential. I thought Season 1 was just okay and it would only go up from there, but I was so wrong. It feels more like a CW show with more whoopee and violence. I don't understand Netflix. The show had a huge budget, but it still looks so cheap. I did like most of the sword fighting though. Dr. Smith in Lost in Space. Should have been thrown out the airlock with extreme prejudice by the 3rd episode. And Major West's call sign has to be Crash? This is a defining character trait for him. The 2000s movie and the Netflix series makes you immediately want to space Dr. Smith, especially the Netflix series. Nate from Ted Lasso. No reason his character had to turn into the largest douche canoe. Obsessed with the show otherwise. Honestly, this might be a hot take, but I like what they did to Nate. It made sense because he was always so insecure, and it's interesting to see a good person turn bad for those reasons. He always had to be pushed out of his comfort zone to grow, so it made sense that the moment he left his support system, he did a 180 and went downhill fast. I just wish they'd explored that character more to make it work better. Yeah, my only issue with it was that they had to speedrun the redemption part of his story, and it didn't feel earned enough, though the scene where he confronts his dad is brilliant. How about Urkel? I swear I'm not Reginald VelJohnson, guys. Yeah, it was supposed to be Blue Collar Cosby Show, not goddamn Quantum Leap. But seriously, as a black 80s baby, That was always one critique of the black experience on TV. You had shows with really poor black people, like Good Times, and shows with wealthy black people, like Cosby and Fresh Prince. A good family show that showed how most black people actually lived would have been perfect. The middle class is always the largest group, but Urkel made it literally 95% shenanigans after the third season. More like that came in the noughties, but it would have meant more in the 90s. They also had a weird habit of making the sons really stupid and the daughters smart, which annoyed me too. Having a smart, sometimes comically nerdy Urkel, instead of what they did with the over-the-top annoying stuff, would have been great. That weird purple ball guy in My Hero Academia. He's so down bad for literally every girl on the show, it made me too uncomfortable to keep watching. Seven being introduced into Married with Children ruined it. Conversely, introducing Seven to Star Trek Voyager pretty much saved the show and was a huge hit with fans. Maybe a couple of huge hits. Leonard in The Big Bang Theory. Not to the point where I couldn't watch it, but I found it very difficult to ever root for him. Just so whiny, manipulative, and just plain pathetic. I agree with an asterisk. He varies a lot between being the deserving, selfless show hero and an annoying man-baby. And that's from a guy who has The Big Bang Theory as a guilty pleasure. Gaius Baltar. Just kidding. Battlestar Galactica was still amazing, but he definitely came close. The Cop on House. It's a common issue on shows that some bad guy distracts the point of the show, to the point of being overdone. Randy from That 70s Show. Should have just tried to make the last season work without an Eric replacement. Luke's daughter April in Gilmore Girls. The Shark in Happy Days. It didn't ruin an entire TV show for me, more like an entire season, but I do not like Kristen Schaal's character on 30 Rock. Rick's wife in Walking Dead. She died, yes, but it was already ruined for me. When she wants to take the car and everyone tells her not to, then she crashes it because of the only zombie for 50 miles on an otherwise clear road. At the time, I thought it was just an infuriating character decision, but then things like that just kept happening. Well, Laurie isn't much better in the comics either at first, but things start to smooth over after a while. Also, she dies quite a bit later in the comics while the governor attacks the prison, whereas she dies in the show before they even meet the governor. The governor's attack on the prison is a lot more brutal and tragic in the comics though, especially Laurie and Judith's death. And the way Rick goes off the deep end and starts losing his mind is a bit more believable, I think. Ana Lucia on Lost. Fiona Gallagher on Shameless went from a great character to a complete crap stain. How did she forget that she still had $100,000 invested in that project? It felt like the actress told them she was bailing next season, and the writers had to crash her character to create an exit strategy. It's Raj on The Big Bang Theory for me. Every other character grows in some way except for him, and he's always whiny and makes everything about himself no matter what his friends are dealing with from the beginning until the finale. Even Sheldon has more heartfelt moments and sometimes knows when to back off. Hazel Wasser-Name on 30 Rock, just unbearable in every single scene she's in. You know, even as a child I had a really hard time enjoying Rugrats because I disliked Angelica so much. Ted from How I Met Your Mother. He's a whiny little man-baby and I cannot believe he's supposed to be a romantic hero. I mean, Barney isn't great either, neither is Lily. Most of them were awful, actually. I wasn't really a big fan of Legend of Korra overall, but Milo made me feel such visceral rage that I'd have to skip over any scene he was in. I've been rewatching it because my girlfriend's never seen it, and he's still probably one of the top 10 worst characters of all time for me. Euron Greyjoy. Most mysterious and interesting character in the books easily, in my opinion, although Patchface maybe has him beat. And they basically turn Euron into Bam Margera. The show was already crappy at that point, but what they chose to do with his character was unforgivable. Felicity Smoke on Arrow. I've never encountered a more enraging scene than her literally discovering her paralysis has been cured by walking out of her wheelchair and then walking on her fiancé, because he kept the news that he had a son that he himself had only just learned about to himself. Stupid writing aside, her actions throughout the whole season come off as emotional mistreatment. The brilliant idea you had, while drunk, that turned out to be absolute cringe. A friend of mine called around 3 a.m. about a fantastic, groundbreaking idea he had for getting sunburn on your feet. He wears Crocs a lot, so I was actually kind of interested. Okay, so like cloth or something that you can put on your feet that would keep you from getting sunburn from the holes in your Crocs. Socks. He was describing socks. To have a fast food spot that sold frozen meals already cooked. Like you can order a heated up Hot Pocket, toaster strudel, chicken pot pie, or whatever you like. That would be called Applebee's. Whilst on the wacky tobacco, I came up with the idea of making pens with white ink that would cover up any mistakes on white paper. Then I realized not only had it been done already, but I had one in my backpack next to where I keep the pen I used to write down the idea. I came up with that one in kindergarten. My mom told me about whiteout. I wanted to write them, demanding partial credit because I hadn't heard of it, so I'd had the idea too. Mom said we were out of postage stamps. While dropping what I thought was A, and turned out to be a 25N bohm, I was beyond confident that I had not only finally understood the truest, deepest secrets of the universe, but that I'd distilled the idea into an image that could be drawn out. I was certain that with that image I could remember everything about the true universal secrets when I came down. The next day I looked at the paper, and it was a line with a circle on each end, kind of like a dumbbell. I have no idea what it means. While smoking the wacky tobacco with some friends, I came up with the idea for a restaurant. I called it Pound Town. The idea was that all of our specials would be centered around a pound, like 16-ounce steaks and things like that. Our signature desserts would incorporate pound cake. You get the idea. I even had the idea for the commercial. It would start off with a kid in his late teens walking up and knocking on somebody's front door. He suddenly stiffens up when an older man opens the door. Hi sir, I'm here to pick up Jenny. Oh, you must be Zach, the guy says somewhat sternly. Jenny's still getting ready. Come inside, she'll just be another minute. They both sit down in the living room, and an awkward silence falls between them as the father eyes the young man suspiciously. So, he says, where exactly are you planning on taking my daughter tonight? The kid cracks a sly smile as he says, I'm taking her to Pound Town. The father ridiculously nods in approval as the advertisement kicks off, showing the food and announcing the specials. Well, I'll say one thing in your defense. This sounds about as witty or funny as anything on SNL, so maybe if you can't get your restaurant started, you could just send the commercial script there and make like $2, I don't know. A pot or bowl with holes in it so that you don't have to use a wire mesh strainer to strain spaghetti. I had drawings and everything. People around me were like, holy crap, this thing's gonna make millions. The next day, a guy said, that's a colander. A food truck specializing in egg rolls the size of burritos. Are you writing in the wrong window? Because this is a good idea. I once thought edible tape would be a game-changing idea for when your burrito or huge egg roll rips up. Just tape it back with edible tape. The TV show Cheaters, except with stray cats. Candid cameras catching cats being unfaithful with other neighborhood cats, and a human host interviewing said cats getting cheated on, just like the TV show. I still kind of want this to be a thing in my sober mindset. I'd like this, but it's catching cats being unfaithful to their human owners by being fed by a neighbor who thinks they're a stray. Running for my local school board, I had a lot of issues with the way education works in our country, and believed the best way to fix the system was by running an honest campaign and promising to fight for the change that would help kids learn better. Ultimately, I sobered up and realized an at-the-time unemployed, blazed 24-year-old with no kids was not the best candidate. I don't know, I'd vote for the unemployed guy who was teed off at the crappy education he received. That guy has an axe to grind. My niece drunk texted me and went on and on about her idea for party popper tampons. She wanted to make tampons that shot out string and confetti when you pulled the string. It was something about women celebrating their freedom and lady bits or something. It was a very confusing 2 a.m. series of texts when she was just supposed to let me know she made it home safe from her night out. Okay, hear me out. King Kong, but with a giraffe. King Long? Sugar bags, like tea bags, but for sugar. Tea and 2 sugars? Okay, 1 tea bag, 2 sugar bags. As we were blazed as F, my cousin holding up an empty tea bag filled with sugar, and me trying to carefully tie it back with a piece of cotton, my cousin disappointingly says, sugar cubes. I got real blazed one time and thought of a great business idea where everyone pays money to a pot and one person wins it all. Turns out the lottery already exists. I thought it would be practical if you have a tag with your address written on it attached to your keys, so if you ever lost them, they could be sent back. It seemed brilliant to me. Thieves might enjoy the idea as well. I mean, my bank does something cool that solves that problem. A keychain with a dog tag that has a specific code that the bank registers to your address. If you lose your keys, anyone who sees them can throw them in a mailbox and they'll be sent back to you. A thing you put on a laptop charger thing that gets hot, which keeps your cheese dip hot. You know what? Now that I use a laptop and know how hot the battery thing can get, you might just be onto something. My friend's a lawyer, and when he was in law school, he did a summer internship to Ghana studying international law. We were like 2 blunts deep, and he came up with the brilliant idea to make chairs in Ghana because everyone he saw there was just sitting on the ground. He was convinced we'd have made a fortune selling chairs. Actually, in my first year of engineering in university, one of the design projects was to come up with a chair made of cardboard. The idea was to make a chair supportive and comfortable enough, whilst also being easy to assemble by cutting out shapes on a large piece of cardboard so as to keep the shipping costs low. The winning design was supposed to be implemented, and if my memory serves correctly, the initial pilot program was going to be for a small community in Ghana. When taking DMT on tabs of A, I had a trip where I flew into space, saw the entire universe on a cosmic wall, and heard what the meaning of life was. When I opened my eyes, I wrote down the meaning to life in my phone. After sobering up, I looked at my notepad and all I wrote down was walls. I had this idea that the Taken films should each focus on a different set of skills. Like Liam Neeson could be an amazing chef in Taken 2 and perhaps a postman in Taken 3. X-Acto spoon. It's an X-Acto knife, only a spoon. One time I woke up in the middle of the night with an idea, a revolutionary idea, something I needed to write down as fast as possible so I wouldn't forget. So I wrote it down and went back to sleep. I woke up, looked at the piece of paper, and all it said was Pennzoil Mini-Wheats. I've never quite figured out what I was thinking. Maybe it was like Tide Pods for changing your oil? Instead of dealing with messy bottles and funnels, you just pop a handful of oil pods in to confuse the heck out of anyone who tries disassembling your motor to unseize it. Oh boy, my notes app is full of liquor or herb-soaked epiphanies and revelations from my younger years. My favorite reads, "Any boy that has the pineapple is a good boy." Turn signals on grocery carts. I once had the idea to have 2 left turn signals on a car, one for a regular left turn and a different one to indicate you are going to do a U-turn. I have no idea why this made so much sense at the time, but for the rest of that night, I legitimately thought I was a genius. Juber. Uber for Orthodox Jews. You would pre-arrange when the Uber would come to get you to go to the synagogue, and you wouldn't have to open doors or walk or anything. When I took mushrooms, I came up with the absolutely genius idea that NASA should employ young children and send them to space for missions because they have more natural curiosity and aren't jaded yet by adulthood, and they might notice things that a more experienced astronaut would miss, because they'll look at them from a different perspective. I was convinced I needed to email NASA right away and tell them about my brilliant epiphany. Apparently, I really need to watch Space Camp and The Astronauts and read the Ender's Game series. I appreciate all of your suggestions. I mean, sure, let's just round up a bunch of kids and send them into space and see what happens. No ethical dilemmas there that I can see. I'll ask my friend if his newborn might be up for that in a few years. Probably only a 2 out of 10 chance of being told to F off, right? I had this idea for a movie in a similar vein of Cabin in the Woods, where these people move into that haunted house, except the plot is from the antagonist's perspective, where the ghosts haunting the house treat it like a job, and have interviews in front of a camera, reality show style, venting about how tedious the little aspects of the job are. The premise was that this ghost had reluctantly picked up and followed this family to this new house in order to keep haunting them, and inadvertently stepped on another ghost's jurisdiction, and they'd bicker about who haunts who, and antics ensue. I realize now that this is more or less just what we do in the shadows. Damn you, Taika. My grand idea was to put caramelized onions in my hamburger helper. I mean, yes, it was good, but not as mind-blowing as I thought it would be when I was high as a kite. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to Am I the Genius? Got really medicated and had the sudden realization that things that are lighter than air are the things that float. I wondered, there's more than just helium that's lighter than air contents. How come we don't have any other ways to fill balloons and stuff? Then my friend goes, "Have you ever heard of the Hindenburg, idiot?" I was thinking that kids these days need more time on the road to be better drivers. So maybe Uber should partner with whatever driving education groups and subsidize them or pay the kids in college bonds or whatever. Yeah, maybe hiring a bunch of terrible drivers for your taxi service isn't such a good idea. I've got this running note on my phone with my ideas that I have while intoxicated. I think my best one is, what if there was a Queer Eye spin-off called Third Eye, where hippies and conspiracy theorists try to awaken people who are already happy with their lives? Most of them are just dumb, with such highlights as, "Future math will be cool," and "There's a lot of cute animal behavior." One time, when I was tripping, I wrote down this whole page of numbers and swore it was the answer. The answer to what? I don't know. I just kept saying, "It's all about the digits." "The numbers, Mason. What do they mean?" Here's a good one from my list of ideas. Dumpsters, trash cans, and dives. We livestream dumpster diving like American Pickers or Storage Wars, but completely bullcrap pricing guesses with fake accents. Beer rocks. When driving at an outdoor place, using plastic cups, you put fancy rocks in your beer so the cups don't blow over. Genius. Yeah, mine was similar. The theory was the top half of the beer tastes better than the bottom half, so we make cups that have the bottom half already full of something else. We invented smaller cups. When a football match goes into extra time, they should add a second ball. If it gets to halftime without anyone scoring, they add a third ball. I'm not actually sure that this idea is a bad one. Bobby, you can't solve every problem using pinball logic. Once, while we were imbibing, my friends came up with an online call center for people who have anxiety while on substances to call. It was named TripAdvisor. I was on A and had a revolution that I had to make the next Google. I have no idea what it means to be the next Google, but regardless, I felt like it was the best idea in the world. The feeling of checking my notes app the next day for the grand idea I'd had and seeing "be the next Google" was hilarious. I wrote a song, and I thought it was really beautiful. The next day, it turned out I'd just written down "Carry On My Wayward Son." Not me, but Paul McCartney. The first time he got medicated, he apparently discovered the meaning of life and immediately went to write it down. When he woke up the next morning, he looked at the paper and it said, "There are 7 levels." My creative writing tutor had a comedian friend who kept dreaming about telling the world's funniest joke. He'd get a standing ovation every time, and he toured the world on this one joke. But when he woke up, he could never remember it. One night, he kept a notepad next to his bed, woke from the dream, and scribbled down the joke. Got up the next morning, looked at the page, and it said, "I am a hammer." Pre-melted cheese. Okay, I feel the need to clarify as people are saying nacho cheese or Velveeta or Cheese Whiz. I was real baked. My idea was pre-melted cheese, like a boil-on-the-bag rice, but for cheese. Like a block of cheddar cheese in a sandwich bag and you boil it till it's molten, and then it stays molten? Like it doesn't solidify and you could just pour it on stuff. I mean, come on, I was so blazed, I literally forgot all of the aforementioned products existed, and I thought I was going to be a frickin' millionaire. Then I started to talk with my friends about where I should live, be it LA or New York, in a penthouse suite, if I should have a butler and maids and stuff. Then I came to after passing out at some point, and I remember the entire conversation and think, holy frickin' god, I'm a frickin' moron. I always felt free throws in basketball slowed the game down too much. I felt instead they should have dunks instead, where the player that was fouled has a running start from the three-point line, and the one who committed the foul is at the basket defending against the dunk. I see now that this could turn into an endless loop of fouling. Myself and 2 friends were extremely baked and very hungry. We put all of our money together and said that we'd buy the most amount of food for the amount of money we had gathered. We had a total of £16. So our thought process was we could order 16 portions of chips. That's French fries for you Americans. We had to call the takeaway 3 times before they'd finally believe that it wasn't a prank. We convinced them we were throwing a party. The takeaway finally delivered it, and myself and my other friend were too out of it to go to the door, so we made friend number 3 go by himself. All of the lights were off and there was no music playing, so the delivery driver delivered 16 portions of chips to one man alone from his perspective. Needless to say, 16 portions of chips is too much food between 3 people. I ran upstairs and yelled at my husband, "Why don't they make mittens but for feet?" And he said, "You mean socks?" And I said, "Oh yeah, socks." This makes me think of the German word for gloves, Handschuh, which literally translates to hand shoes. You're basically reverse engineering the German language. I mean, this is the second time someone's tried to invent socks by my reckoning. Are these people just mostly sandal wearers, or how do they think that cloth for our feet isn't already a thing? Once, while thoroughly drunk, I ordered a pizza and it arrived overcooked. The crust was like dried asphalt, and the toppings blackened and singed. So I pitched the idea to my other drunk buddies that pizza places should let their customers control the pizza ovens through the internet, so that we could decide when it was done, which then led to an entire design-your-own-pizza machine and website combo, where one could control exactly how much of each ingredient to add using robotic arms, and you could watch it cook live through an oven cam. It seemed brilliant at the time. Cardboard boxes for kitty litter that open on the side like origami forms a litter box for the cats. At the end of the week, you fold it all up, throw it away, and then open a new one. So much cardboard waste because it would have to be treated to be water resistant on the inside, and it would be completely unrecyclable afterwards. One of my philosophy professors told a joke about a philosopher having a dream in which he met Socrates, but quickly saw the proper rebuttal to his views, which Socrates conceded. Then he met Aristotle and Descartes and Kant and Nietzsche and Mill, and with each of them presented his contrary position successfully. He knew he was dreaming, but he thought, "I have to wake up enough to write this down." He managed to become conscious enough that he quickly scrawled the words down on some paper and then fell asleep again. The next morning he woke up, remembered what had happened, and excitedly grabbed the note. It read, "Yeah, well that's what you say." Oh god, I did something similar. I was having a dream where I felt like the secrets of the universe were being revealed to me, and I'd gained some irreplaceable piece of wisdom that could change my life forever. I woke up in my half-asleep, blurry sleepiness and grabbed my phone, opened my notes app to write down this critical knowledge, and in the morning I vaguely remembered the dream, convinced that there was a notes app that would be the key to life and the universe. All it said was, "The age of the worm shop is infinite." When I was in high school, after a lengthy hotbox one evening, I came up with the reverse candle, which would consume carbon dioxide and produce oxygen while also providing shade. Everyone truly thought that it was a good idea, so we wrote it out on a piece of paper so we wouldn't forget. Later, the next day, I realized we had invented trees. See, this is the kind of insight substances could give you though. Before now, I would never have considered how a candle could be the opposite of a tree, but now it makes perfect sense. I don't drink or smoke, but a friend of mine was drunk and picked up a guitar, started playing, and thought he wrote the song Walk by Pantera. Usually I make big plans that cost a lot of money and then promise sober people that we'll do them. So they start to look forward to the plans. I sober up and regret all of my decisions, yet still have to follow through. Most recent was that I promised my sister that I'd bring my daughter to visit her in Florida. $2,000 later, I have sunburn. You should always do sober what you said you'd do drunk. That will teach you to keep your mouth shut. Ernest Hemingway. My wife and I got this genius idea after smoking a fatty to create the next big hit in the snack world. Cup crepes. A cupcake made from mini crepes, stacked on top of each other, topped with whipped cream and strawberries. I was pretty medicated on green herb. I made some killer mac and cheese and I saw that I had some bacon, so I cooked up the bacon and cut it into small pieces and put it on the mac and cheese. It was so goddamn heavenly that I forgot that bacon bits and bacon bits on mac and cheese already existed. In my fit of excitement, I texted my friend my totally brand new, never done before creation and was told that it was already a thing. And that in fact it might be more common to have it this way than without.